40, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. It's the Gregor Show is always presented by our title sponsor, PlayAlberta.ca, where it's Thursday. And it's mine, probably not yours, but it's my favorite game, the Daily Grand. Because I want to win simply to know, how do I get my $1,000 a day? Do I got to go pick it up? Do I get an e-transfer? Do I get to pick the time of day? Because I would like it at the same time. I'd like to know while I'm sitting down having breakfast, beep, comes in, boom. There's your G note for the day, and you're off to a good start. So if you want to win the Daily Grand, you can. It is $1,000 a day for the next 20 years. That's $7.2 million. Play it at playalberta.ca. Also, if you're so inclined, Vladdy Guerrero looking for his 20th consecutive game with a hit. He's been rolling. No pun intended. Playing very well. So if you like that, check it out at playalberta.ca. Happy Thursday. It's another great day for Canada at the Olympics. 2 more medals, secured another one as a guarantee. So first of all, let's go with the for sure's Maud Sharon, who won gold in the 64 kilogram division in 2022. She wins silver this time, competing though in the 59 kilogram weightlifting competition. She set a personal best. She had 130 kilogram clean and jerk, as well as 106 kilogram in the snatch. The old snatch and the clean and jerk. Yes, it's weightlifting. Some of you might use it for other terms, but you know what we're talking about. So she actually had set a record, and then it got broken by the gold medalist a few minutes later. So, personal best, not much else you can ask for at the Olympics when you get a personal best. So Maud Sharon now a gold medalist and a silver medalist. Skylar Park has won Canada's first medal in Taekwondo in 16 years. She picks up a bronze today, and that Taekwondo is no joke. Like, you can score points for kicking your opponent in the head. Now, I know that they wear headgear, but still, the Taekwondo is no joke at the high level. It's I love watching it. Would I want to participate in it? Hard pass. I don't think so. For all of you who like the Taekwondo, good on you. Canada is also, so we're up to 21 medals now, and a guarantee for a 22nd, because Wilkerson and Humana Paradis are into the beach volleyball gold medal game tomorrow. And they have been on fire here coming through the last 4 days. They dominate in the quarterfinals. Now they come from behind, win in the semis, and they are going to the goal. So guaranteed at least another silver, maybe a gold. Now, if they win gold, that would match the 7 gold medals that Canada had at 2020. And they had 24 medals. So we have 21, guaranteed 22, whether it's a gold or a silver. Both of the relay team, men and women, are into the final for the 4x100. Right? Both of them are going to have to run great to get a medal. But hey, anything can happen. Somebody botches a baton handoff, and it's wide open. So we'll see what happens for both the men and the women in the 4x100. And obviously, we still have a shot put. Looking very good there on the women's side. So a very good chance to maybe surpass the 24 medals of 2020, which would be great to see. Also, and man, this is just tragic news. Oh, and by the way, I should mention, I don't know if you watched it or not, Connor Halley, but Sydney McLaughlin-Levrone, the American, she absolutely obliterated the field and the world record in the 400-meter hurdle. She ran it in 50.37. That's 400-meter hurdles in 50.37. So my son went out and, he's doing some running stuff now. He likes running. He's in track. It's great. So they had a training session on Saturday. And so I was like, you know what? I'm trying to get back in shape. And so I'm working out, doing a lot of stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to run. I warm up. I'm doing some sprints now. Mine are about 50 meters, right? Just warming up. And I'm like, you know what? I want to see, just for fun today, how fast I could run 100-meter. Now, granted, I timed it myself, ready, set, go. So, you know what? Give or take a second on how accurate it is, right? But it was on my, I had the watch on, ready, set, go, boom, went around the track. I finished in 1 minute and 17 seconds, and I was dying. Now, I haven't ran a 400-meter race in I don't know how long, 25 plus years. But I was like dying. I did it in 1:7. They did with hurdles in 50 seconds, 0.37. Now, the fastest 400 I ever ran when I was training was in the 50s, right? Like, I think I ran 56 or 7. And now and so they're doing it with hurdles. Like, it's mind blowing to me how fast they are, right? Like, but to be that much quicker now, like, I don't know if I'd ever be able to break a minute anymore. To be honest, I'd have to train ridiculous amount. So I don't think I could, but it just illustrates how fast they're doing it with the hurdles. And then the men hurdles were just, well, obviously a little bit quicker, of course, but man, it was like her race though was phenomenal today.
Yeah, I watched her in the semifinals, Gregor, and we pretty much proclaimed her the winner. She was doing it with ease. Like, you watch some of them, and jumping over a hurdle can be a challenge enough for some people. We watch that, and some people do make it look tough, even at the Olympic level. She was doing it with ease. Like, it looked like her upper body almost didn't even move. Like, she was just doing it with no problem at all. And yeah, like you said, it's just one of those things. You always want to see it. The average man, average woman Olympics. Just so we can really appreciate how good honestly, these people are.
It would be, and I know sometimes they've done, to show you times and you can see it, but it was, it's crazy. It truly is crazy to see just how fast they are. I think sometimes because they're running against the other fastest people in the world. So they're like, well, they all look fast, but I don't think you'll get a sense of just how fast they are. I mean, now, a good example is Connor McDavid at the Order Games. When they have that competition, right? You get a little Joe or Pete or Sarah, whoever it is, they're on the ice. They got to do their 2 laps. McDavid gives them a whole lead, and he still blows by them. It gets now, granted, some of those skaters aren't necessarily everyday skaters by any stretch of imagination. But I've even seen good skaters, and obviously they still get obliterated by it. So it's great to see. But yeah, the men's final as Hall defeated Hudson Smith in the men's 400 meter. A little bit of an upset. That was a great race too. Did you see the finish? Like, oh my God, you had everybody close. It was awesome. So I'm loving the Olympics. I will say that I'll be a slight disappointed when it's all said and done. And hopefully Canada can get 4 more medals. I think we got pretty much 2. I think in shot put, we got one coming. Obviously, we got one coming in beach volleyball. So can they muster up 2 other medals?
Breakdancing, come on.
Do we have anybody? Honestly,
we got the Wizard.
Oh, is the Wizard good?
Oh, yeah.
Is he like now? Is the Wizard a he? Or is this,
it's a he. Yeah.
Is that his name, the Wizard?
That's what they call him.
What is he? The Wiz? Is this Seinfeld? Unbelievable.
Phil Wizard.
Phil. Oh, okay. His last name's Wizard. All right.
I don't even think it is. I think that's just his nickname. The other contestants, athletes go by like B-boy stuff, and he's just Phil Wizard.
Phil Wizard. All right. I can get by that.
Lock it in. It's the Connor Halley guarantee. He'll medal.
Now, when is that? When's he competing? I want to watch this. Is it tomorrow or Friday?
I'll get the
or tomorrow is Friday. Is it tomorrow or Saturday?
Prelims go tomorrow at 8 a.m.
8 a.m. our time?
That's the female side. Yeah, Saturday, 8 a.m. for the men.
Okay. Now, do we have any women in that they're medal hopefuls?
Not as confident in the women as I am in the men.
All right.
There's got to be one Canadian. Now, as I scroll through, maybe not. So we're putting all our hopes on Phil Kim.
Hey, I want to see the Wizard. I'm in. I like it.
Selling the hype.
All right. 833-401-424. I just want to watch the breakdancing. Like I watched some videos online. I've seen some competitions, and you're just like, I'm amazed by it. I don't know about you, but I'm quite amazed by it. So I would I kind of want to see what they come up with at the Olympics. Because I wonder if the ones I'm watching, are they just like B-level breakdancers? Well, maybe not BBs, probably. Yeah, maybe they are. Are they the AHL of breakdancers and is it the NHL of breakdancing? We'll see. Hey, guys, you think a speed skater on hockey skates could beat McDavid in a hockey rink race? Not a speed skating race because he'd most likely lose. Well, the skates make a massive difference. And you got to, it's totally different. To skate on speed skates, the blades are worlds different. So I think if you ask Connor McDavid to put on speed skates on a speed skating track, it would take him a long time to figure out how to maximize his potential and vice versa. So it's not as easy as just saying, hey, good skater, put on speed skates, you'll be good at it. I would think McDavid knows how to skate. So he would probably be okay, but it's very different and the edges are very, very different. So I would think if the speed skater's wearing hockey skates, they're not winning. McDavid's wearing speed skates, he ain't winning. And if McDavid's wearing hockey skates and the speed skater's wearing speed skater skates, he's not winning. So just that's how it goes. Now, I love the short track and speed skating. Like it's almost like roller derby, man. It is unreal to watch. So, hey guys, was Klefbom still on the payroll with LTR, and does he come off because he is retired now? No, he hasn't. He was on LTIR for the final few years of his contract. And he didn't officially retire because he was going to get paid out. But he wasn't on the roster last season. His LTIR, like his contract had done, it had finished, so he wasn't on LTIR last year, and did not count them. But his retirement really, he wasn't going to retire and walk away from the money. It doesn't make any sense. So that's why he did it. 833-401-1440. 833-401-1440 in our email inbox. Today, you know what? Sometimes cons, there's new ages, new advancements in technology, and things are different. And I'm sure there's a time in your life where you're just like, oof, not feeling over intelligent. Well, today was mine because I got a new, Jordy dropped it off here to me from Volvo. Got a new hybrid XC60. And I'll say that thing has got 455 horsepower. Oh, like it can go. But anyway, so today, because yesterday when I got it, drove home, no problem. Everything's fine. Well, the car was running. So come home, I park it. Today I get ready to leave. I go and turn my car on. And I'm like, I don't hear anything. Well, what's going on? It's shut it off. I'm like, what has happened? I'm going to press the gas again. The brake, turn it on. No. I call him. I'm like, dude, do I have to do something special here to turn this on? He's like, did you turn it on? I'm like, yeah. Well, then it's on. You just don't hear it. And I was like, oh my goodness. Embarrassing 101. And you didn't hear anything. It is so weird. Now, this is a hybrid, so it's not, it's not like a fully electric vehicle. It's got a hybrid. You can plug it in when you need it. You can run on gas if you need it, which I think is probably more realistic in Alberta weather. I hope eventually down the road we'll have the capacity to handle the super cold winters. We'll see. Right? It's like the first car when you got it. Wasn't perfect. Took a long time so I would expect electric cars to be the same. But I could not believe how quiet it was. Didn't even know it was on. So my question to you and to any of our listeners, what is your I'm not smart technology moment? Because technology, anything you want, that's kind of, that would be mine, where I was just like, wow, it's kind of embarrassing. So move on. We'll see what happens. But it wasn't great. It was not a good feeling. Somewhat disappointing.
Almost got ran over by my dad, actually, in his new vehicle because it was so quiet.
So you didn't know it was moving?
I didn't know it was on. He got in. He was backing out of his driveway. I just stood there looking the other way for probably about 30 seconds. And then he just kind of was like, well, time to learn a lesson. And he just slowly pulled back and I kind of heard the hum. But yeah, I'm with you, Gregor. They are very quiet. I also learned a lot when I tried to buy the new college football game NCAA 2025. My systems are outdated. I didn't know that was a thing. I thought they'd make the game for everyone, but the Xbox I have doesn't have the capacity for it. So there's a few things for me. This getting older thing, it's catching up to me.
Yeah, you're really old.
Falling out of favor with the technology.
Yeah. Guys, it's the old IT question. Is it plugged in? Well, you know what's funny? My computer guy, who are tech guys, they always laugh. They say, you know what? Usually restarting it is normally the quickest way to fix 75% of the issues. You got to restart it. It's kind of like, oh, You got to hit it a bit. Way you go. So that one's funny, yet very accurate. Very accurate. Hey, guys, I don't know if this is new technology, but I like to bring back the old stuff. I had my grandkids come over and see if they could make a phone call from my rotary phone. Guess what? It didn't happen. LOL from Gramps. Oh, that is cool. You know what? My in-laws in their basement have a real old phone that works. It's on the, it's like so old, Cons. It's not like the old handle that we had where, it's all the one piece. No, it's like, it almost looks like the horn where you put, and you talk into the one end and you pull out the other. It's unbelievable. And it works. Like my son goes over there and he gets half the time he goes downstairs and then he just dials because he knows how to dial it because you got to spin it, right? 9 comes back. It comes back. And usually dials one of his parents just because he wants to talk on the phone because he's downstairs. Thinks it's the greatest thing ever. So I could see how some people, if you put them in a room and say, here, make a phone call, and you plunge down a rotary phone, I don't think most would figure it out. It would take it. Well, now you probably would eventually. But if I'll tell you right now, the way guaranteed, if it was the party line phone where anybody who was on a party line where you had the two little white knobbies and you had to pull up the one on the left, then you were connected, they'd be like, what am I doing? So yeah, sometimes it's what you grow up in and what you know. It's not necessarily that you're smarter or dumber. It's just what you're comfortable with. When we return, we will preview a team that I think maybe the biggest question mark in the Western Conference. There should be a playoff team, but how good are they going to be? And there's lots of unknowns, and how distracting is that going to be? How do you even prepare for that? We'll get to it next on the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
The only thing as hot as the weather this summer is a night out at On the Rocks. Every weekend, enjoy live music and top DJs spinning your favorite tracks. The dance floor is the place to be. Celebrating a birthday or stagette? Let OTR take the work out of the planning for you. Book your party online at ontherocksedmonton.com. Join OTR every evening from 4 p.m. for a great atmosphere and good company. There's something for everyone to enjoy. Grab your Good Vibe Drive and head to On the Rocks, corner of Jasper Ave and 118th Street.
Rule number 12, not spending the afternoon tubing on the Pembina. Next, you're going to tell us you don't wear flannel. Summer in Alberta has its own set of rules. And if you're looking to add a little extra fun, Play Alberta has it all. Use promo code SUMMER to snag a $50 casino bonus for casino, instance, and live dealer with your next deposit. Get ready for promotions throughout the summer to help you make the most of those sunny Alberta days, because we all know they won't last long enough. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
It seems the price of everything is redonkulous. So at Wolf GMC Buick, we're trying to make it easy on your wallet. We have a huge selection of GMCs with finance rates starting at 0%. Wait, did I just say 0%? I did. And why am I talking to myself? Oh boy. The prices are fantastic, selection top-notch, and the vehicles? Well, you already know that they're stellar. Get into Wolf GMC Buick now, just off the Anthony Henday. Wolf GMC Buick. We're making it easy.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium roast coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
Does your bank do local? We do. When you bank with Vision Credit Union, you're banking with a rural Albertan cooperative that cares about the community where you live. We actively support our rural communities at the local level through charitable donations, volunteerism, local team and event sponsorships, and by returning millions in profit shares to our members every year. Does your bank do that? We do local. Bank with Vision Credit Union. VisionCU.ca.
If you've ever restored a classic car or seen one, you smile because you know what it took to get that beauty looking pristine. The same is true for men who restore their hair. Nothing but smiles for miles. Patients from all over Canada travel to see me, Dr. Vance Elliott, to have their hair loss treated and remedied. I've been helping people for 28 years. My practice is outfitted with the most innovative and latest hair transplant techniques and technology. And I do it myself. Contact us at drvanceelliott.com.
What's cracking at Cattail Crossing? Take a shot in the dark with Night Golf. Just $61 per person for 9 holes and a glow ball rental. Get a team together, dress in glow gear, have dinner before Night Golf at Out of Bounds Restaurant. Book at cattailcrossing.ca.
Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. Hey, fellas, for the life of me, I can't wrap my head around iPhones. That's kind of pathetic, as I'm a trained computer programmer, and I managed a third-party call center that did tech support for computers and digital cable. But hand me an iPhone, I'm useless. I hate Apple products from AH. Are they that much different? Now, I'll be honest. Like, I use my phone for probably the bare minimum. Right? Calling, texting, tweeting. Not much else. Like, I'm sure there's some people, like, I guess I take a few pictures, sure. But like, what else do you use your phone for, Cons?
X, Instagram.
So just social media, but
Social media, that's pretty much it. Like, I do a lot of our Instagram and Facebook posts. I like to play games on mine. Got a brick ball crusher I like to play, a little solitaire. Got the Elks Rewards app. I've got actually, one of our listeners told us about an app called Yuka, and you scan barcodes of food and it gives you like its health rating. So as I'm trying to clean up the diet, I've been using that a lot.
Oh, buddy.
Shout out to whoever
like
sent that in.
It's interesting. So I see the MPs at the Heritage are like, they're calling on Canada Soccer because they need to get to the bottom of it. I'm like, hey, maybe call on the food industry. You know, like, it was a dumb decision, no question. But this is not altering anybody's life, for God's sakes. Is this dangerous? Is this really something that's what they need to be doing? Like, I don't know. Hey, all I got to do is read some books, look at documentaries on the unhealthy food that's allowed in our diet. Now, people think they're eating healthy based on what they put on the packaging, and they're not.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe look into that. Just a thought. I don't know. Maybe our life health might be a tad more important than the speeding up the investigation of Canada Soccer and the drone. Hey, did you guys use the drone? Yes. Were you stupid? Yes. End of discussion. Right? Fire the coach, fire everybody else, move on. What else do we need to do here? This is not real rocket science in my eyes. Let's go around the NHL. A few of you guessed correctly on where we're going today. Brought to you by McDonald's. Ooh, I had one today, Cons. The thick milkshake, only $2. Chocolate, so good. Try it at McDonald's. $2 for milkshake, $2 for the sundae, or $1 cone right now, all summer long at your local McDonald's. As we welcome in from Colorado hockey, Evan Raul joins us again. Evan, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
The Colorado Avalanche, to me, are one of the most fascinating teams in the Western Conference. Because on paper, when they're healthy, they're like a really good team. But they got $13 million, wrapped up in question marks because of Landeskog and Nichushkin. Kind of, what's your expectation for Landeskog? Like, I know he's coming to camp. Everybody says he's going to be ready to go, and we really hope he is. But do you have any sense of if he will be?
No, we really don't have any sense if he's going to be ready for camp. Like, when we talked to him after the season ended, he said, sometime between September and April, I'll be ready. And it's just like, okay, that doesn't clear anything up. So they're kind of in this weird spot where they've clearly made room for him. They want him back, but they just don't know when it's going to happen. And really, the reality is if it's going to happen, because he's coming back from something that no one's ever come back from. So I would love to see him play it again. I don't know if and when it's going to happen. And then you got the Val situation hanging over everything, which is a whole other thing. And Chris McFarland's hands were kind of tied this summer because of those two guys.
Yeah. Like Nichushkin, he's eligible to come back in November, right? The 15th, give or take?
I think, it's November 13th, but that's just like, I mean, he has to get approved, I guess, because it's a minimum thing. So we'll see.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Like, do the Avs even have a sense of, so even if he gets approved, like, I don't know, is he training? Is he working out? Like, I don't even know what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, he's over in Russia doing things. He's been posting on social media. So he's staying active. I mean, I don't know what he's doing as far as like the program goes and what is entitled there, I guess. But I think my assumption is he's staying active. He was supposed to be playing in some like media hockey league tournament over there in Russia with hockey players and media members involved. So I think he's playing, but it's just a matter of like, I mean, I still have questions as to whether if he's going to be wanted back in that locker room.
Fair point.
Wanted, and like they kind of might need him. It just kind of depends on what happens, because you can't just get rid of that contract, I don't think. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. And I mean, November 13th or whatever is the first day he can come back. And I guess he could just not pass the things and come back. You just never know. So it's just kind of a weird situation where they're just sitting there with a really good player not available. And then when he does come back, it's like, well, do we even want him back after what's happened the last 2 years?
And I guess my question is, so let's say he doesn't get clearance. Does he now not count against the cap? What's the specifics on that? Like, does he automatically count against the cap, or do they have him, he doesn't count, but obviously once they activate him, then he would? How does that work?
I mean, without cap friendly, does anyone really know anything anymore? But my understanding is that he's not going to count against the cap while he's suspended. But then once he's activated, like that $6.25 million or whatever he makes is immediately just hops back onto the cap. So I think if he never gets approved to come back, then his cap hit just never comes back, which, maybe that's best case scenario for the Avalanche, minus not being able to get a really good player back. But then you get some sort of clarity there, I guess that goes. But if he comes back, it counts. If he doesn't, it doesn't, I don't believe.
Like, that's the challenge for the Avs is it's hard to find a $6 million player who's as good as Nichushkin. So even if you lose his money and he never plays again, the odds of you replacing it with someone who's as good is very low.
I would argue it can't happen. Like you're not going to find a guy like that, because if he hit the market today and he didn't have the problems he had, he'd be making $9 million at least, I think. So you're just not going to find a guy like that. And that's kind of the predicament they're in, is like, well, he's kind of, I mean, I don't want to say screwed them over the last 2 years, but it's really hurt them the last 2 years. And now it's like, well, do we want him back, or do we kind of just need him back because we need a guy that good? So it's going to be a predicament. I think that locker room is going to be a little torn as far as whether they want him back or not.
Evan Rawal joins us from Colorado Hockey News. The Avs did make a signing here recently. I think it's pretty good, low risk, good bet for Oliver Shillington, just over $1 million. Where do you see him fitting in? Like, I'm assuming he's on the third pairing?
Yeah, I think it's going to be, I mean, the top four is pretty set. And then they brought in three basically almost league minimum guys this summer, in Calvin DeHaan, Shillington, and then they also signed Eric Brandstrom from Ottawa, who still pretty young at 24. So I think those three guys are going to fill out the bottom, the bottom of the defense, and they'll fight it out for ice time. But it's a great low risk. I mean, they're not paying him anything, so if he doesn't work out, they can waive him and he won't cost against the cap. So really smart move. His skating fits perfectly with how the Avs want to play. But you look at his numbers, and he had that great year playing next to Chris Tanev, and every other year he's had in the NHL has been kind of ho-hum. So we'll see what version the Avs get, but it doesn't hurt. And that's kind of the bets the Avs have had to make this summer, is sign these guys for next to nothing and hope that they can kind of find a home here and work out for the Avs.
When you look at the Avs, and you know what, they had a very good year last year, disappointing for them and what happened in the playoffs in the second round. Like, they dominated Winnipeg. And then obviously went up against a really good Dallas team. Do you feel it's hard to say when I look at their team that they've improved, because there's so much wild card factor in Landeskog and in Shushkin, of course. Now, if Landeskog comes back and he's healthy, which would be great, and Nichushkin's come back and is somehow committed, then I could make a pretty good argument that, man, the Avs are really good and they could be a legit contender, at least up front. But is there too much what if? Like, do you get a sense at all, kind of, what's your expectations in Colorado? Or does even management, there's so much uncertainty that it's kind of hard to have any realistic expectations?
Well, I think when Nate McKinnon is running things, expectations are always going to be high, but I think it's fair to say they didn't get better this summer because they were kind of handicapped by those two guys. So there are a lot of wild cards. Val could come back and be great, but then it's always going to be kind of lingering over what's going to happen next. And as much as I love Gabe, if he comes back and he's the guy he was 3 years ago, then that's a miracle, if we're just being honest, because he's come back from something no one's come back from. So I think best case scenario, you're hoping he comes back and he's just a good player, like he's able to help out. So they really do have a lot of wild cards. Luckily, they were able to get Drew N back on a really friendly deal. I think there's kind of a handshake there between Avs, McFarland and Alan Walsh said, hey, we'll revisit this halfway through the year once we have some more clarity on Landeskog and Nichushkin. But I wouldn't say they're better than last year. I just wouldn't. And it's going to be interesting to see kind of how things play out. And then you have a goalie in net who needs to kind of figure out what he's going to be. Is he a number one or is he not? Because he's heading into a contract year and they need him to be good.
Now, what can you tell me about Nikolai Kovalenko?
I can tell you a lot because I've watched a lot of him, and he's very much going to be a guy he's going to get an opportunity in camp because of these situations. And also, Arturi Lehkonen had shoulder surgery this summer, so we'll see if he's ready for camp. But he is a bull in a china shop. I'm sure you watched his dad.
Oh, yeah.
He's very similar in that he's not a big guy as far as height goes, but he's built. They call him Mini Tank for a reason, because he plays that way. He's very much like his dad, where he'll run you over, he'll bowl you over. He's got skill. He was one of the best players in the KHL the last 2 years. And if he hadn't come over hurt, I think he would have made a bigger impact down the stretch, but he came over with a knee injury. So Avs didn't really get a look at him, but he's going to get a good look in camp. And he's one of those wild cards where if he can provide value at an entry-level deal, it could be huge for the Avs this year.
So do you kind of envision him as a lock to make the roster?
I think so. I think they would have played him last year if he came over. The Avs spoke very highly of him heading into the trade deadline as though he's going to be a trade deadline addition. And then the injury happened. So I do think he's a lock because those types of guys who are 24, 25, who've been great in the KHL, they didn't come over to play in the AHL. They're here to play in the NHL, and I think the Avs believe he can be that. And he can do a little bit of everything. So I think even if he's not maybe on the top six, he can find a role in the bottom six because he plays a physical game and he killed penalties. And he played under Igor Lariana for the last 2 years, so he kind of knows what needs to be done to survive in the NHL.
And Casey Middlestad was acquired midway through the season last year for Bowen Byram. Had decent numbers anyway. How would you evaluate his play, and what do you think if Landeskog's healthy, is Middlestad the third line center, or is Landeskog the third line center?
Well, Landeskog will be on the wing. So Middlestad's going to be that 2C no matter what. And I think Avs fans have almost kind of forgot that they got him, because the last 2 years they've had great regular seasons without even having a guy behind McKinnon who can kind of take some of that load off.
Right.
And in the playoffs, Middlestad was that guy. I think he led them in even strength points. So he's been a very productive player the last 2 years. And at the end of the regular season, he struggled a bit, but then the playoffs came along and he really hit the ground running. So I think a summer and a camp for him will be good. And it's not going to fully, make up for what they're losing in Nichushkin, but I think having a legit second line center is going to be a big deal this year for the Avs.
Evan, great stuff, man. We appreciate it. A lot of people will be watching closely to see, and I think a lot of people are rooting for Landeskog to come back and be healthy and see what he can do.
Yeah, I think everyone is. Just the player, the person, everything about him. Everyone wants to see him come back, and especially how hard he's working. It's just, you'd like to see somebody like that get rewarded.
Yeah, very true. Thanks, Evan. Appreciate your time.
Yep, thanks for having me.
There you go. There's Evan Rowell joining us from Colorado Hockey Now, and that's a major question, because if you look, Nichushkin, he's mid-November at the earliest. right? That's the earliest for him. So let's say Landeskog is back. Well, he's basically just taking in Lekkonen's spot, right? Because he had back surgery. I'd be surprised if he's ready. So you got McKinnon, Duran, Rantanen, then Kovalenko, Middlestad, and Landeskog, Colton, Miles, Logan O'Connor. I don't mind that third line. Wagner, Parker Kelly, real ball of energy. Joel Vanta, meh. Like Colorado doesn't like. They just, I get it, I understand it, but they've lost so much depth. Obviously, there's two big pieces that are major question marks, right? In Nichushkin and Landeskog. So, like, I can't think of a team ever that was in such a holding pattern with so much uncertainty about two key players on their team. Will Nichushkin get back in? And then, do they even want him? That's the other big question, for sure. So, we shall see. We've seen mutual terminations of contract, but he has like $24 million. So I don't know if he's going to make that much in the KHL. He's a Russian. He probably could if he wanted to. That like come close to it anyway. So who knows? Maybe that's ultimately what happens here. But that's still a lot to walk away from. Like I don't think it could. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Like maybe he could do it, but it'd be surprising to me. Collins, what's the score in that basketball game, my man?
Well, it's a tie game, 84-84. The States were down 13 points going into the fourth quarter. They have taken charge here, leading in the fourth quarter 21-8. So 84-84 apiece right now.
How much time left?
We've got 4 minutes, 3.5 now. Sorry.
Gosh. Come on, Serbia.
They had a chance. Joker had a chance to put them up by 6. KD with a little steal and went the other way, and Joel Embiid hit a big shot.
So that kind of changed momentum. So we'll see what happens. When we return, we're going to talk about the Olympics, and because a lot of these sports are so much different than hockey and basketball and football, and the training mechanisms and other things, injuries, etc. We'll discuss it next on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to call Legacy. Call Legacy for comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you. Call Legacy. Call Legacy for comfort in your wallet with no payments or interest for 1 year. Call Legacy. Call Legacy. You deserve comfort. Cool off today with AC from Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Gather around the radio, kiddies, for the best time of day. It's Oodle Noodle time. Listen in this week as your noodle hero battles the barbarous Bobby Burger. Now sing along. You know the word. Oodle Noodle time. Oodle Noodle time. You know what time it is now. Get up and give me your best Oodle Noodle dance. Your best time of day is Oodle Noodle time.
Silent Rides is one of Alberta's premier bus charter companies with state-of-the-art motor coaches. We provide our customers with the safest and most reliable ground transportation. Our seatbelt-equipped buses have become the preferred carrier for many local sports teams, tours, corporate outings, and other various travel across Western Canada. For more information and to request a quote, contact Ted Nakamura at 780-940-0880 or visit silentrides.ca.
The summer road lays ahead. Your potential destinations are endless. Volvo Cars Edmonton gives you choice to match. Right now, lease a 2024 Volvo XC90 from 0% for qualifying loyal customers. Or save $7,000 on all new 2024 XC60 recharge plug-in hybrid models. All demo vehicles come with a free 10-year, 1 million kilometer warranty. No matter what you decide this summer will become, your first choice is Volvo Cars Edmonton. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com, 1205 101 Street Southwest.
The Brick is celebrating its 53rd birthday with fantastic deals in every department. Take up to 25% off dining and bedroom furniture and up to 40% off mattresses. And buy more, save more. Up to $400 off select major appliances. And don't forget about back-to-class favorites like desks starting at $74.95, small appliances starting at $99, and mattresses at just $169. Some exclusions apply. See in-store for details. The Brick, saving you more.
Hey, it's Scott from Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. It's our final clear out of classic Ram 1500 trucks, and I do mean final. This is your last chance to get 25% off a brand new Ram truck. We still have some inventory left, but when they're gone, they're really gone. Or get an iconic Jeep Wrangler with up to $7,500 off. 0% financing available on every model. And we have a couple of the rare 500 horsepower 392 Wranglers in stock now. St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, Edmonton's best rated Ram and Jeep dealers.
So fun to watch, but Serbia is suddenly now down by 5. Disappointing. That would have been one of the greatest upsets in sports. I guess there's still a chance because the game's not over, but it ain't looking good. The U.S. is turning on, and Serbia, man, they're turning it over way too often here down the stretch, and you can't give great teams too many second opportunities. They're going to bite you, and that's exactly what's happening. Let's get to our injury report, brought to you by Leading Edge Physio. You got some aches and pains? Well, guess what? Aquatic therapy, radial shockwaves, zero gravity treadmills, pneumatic recovery devices. That's what the pros use, and that's what you can use, because that's what they use at Leading Edge Physio in Leduc, Spruce Grove, St. Albert, Sherwood Park, all around Edmonton. You want to heal? Life and sports shouldn't be painful. They'll help you out at leadingedgephysio.com. As Grant Fedoruk joins us once again. Grant, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you, Jason? I was just doing some recording myself, so.
Oh yeah, you're singing a song over there? It's like you got some headsets on, or are you recording you got a recording studio over there? What's happening?
Yeah, well, we do our own little bit, right? Here and there, a few commercials and stories to tell. So just doing a little bit of work on my own show, looking and kind of getting ready to hang out with you too. I don't look as cool behind a mic as you do, though.
Well, that's debatable for sure. The Olympics, I love watching the Olympics, and it's really, it showcases just, how many different sports there are and how different they are really from kind of the mainstream ones in North America and hockey and soccer. Like there's so much more twisting and turning, right? Like I'm just watching the hammer throw. To me, I'm like, God, they're spinning themselves into the ground so fast and powerful. As somebody and you've worked with all different level athletes, elite athletes in all sorts of different sports. When we get to those turning and twisting sports, like obliques and core and shoulders, like do those become even more essential and I guess maybe more injury prone in those sports?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, every sport has its ups and downs, right? So it depends on what you're doing. As far as asking specifically about twisting, some of those ones that require those big forces, believe it or not, a lot of that comes from the lower body. So if you look at where the power is coming from in those sports, it's coming from the hips and the legs, and you look at what they're putting into in the amount of force they've got to put into it. It's not just arms. In fact, the hammer throw would be a perfect example. The number one thing I noticed when our amazing athlete won the gold medal was he was not nearly the size of some of those other guys. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was a thing that stood out to me. Like his arms those guys were massive in their upper body, massive. And you could just tell that was a mechanics thing. They were not the same size in physique. And yet the winner of the gold medal was somebody who I thought looked, if you were to put them in a line and say, who's going to win this? I don't think you would have picked him. So yes, to answer your question, the more we twist through the torso, like the spine, the higher the likelihood of back injuries and such. But also if you watch that motion that they're doing in that sport specifically, and I'm not an expert on it, but if you watch Most of that is the spinning and the centrifugal force that they're creating there is coming from their lower body, their hips and legs, and they get it going. And that as they let go and release, it's not as much upper body as you would think, and it's certainly not a ton of twisting through their torso.
Now, what about swimmers? Do they have chronic shoulder issues?
Yes. Now there's a different story, a lot different. And we talk about the shoulder specifically. The shoulder is something that's got maximal amount of, I love being not just on the radio, by the way, and being on video, because I can see myself in this and showing people what's happening. But the shoulder itself, if you move it in multi directions, it can go and do a lot of different things. So it sacrifices stability for the amount of mobility that you get out of it. You can reach all the way behind your back, but you couldn't twist your hip and reach your butt up your back or your foot up your back, right? Your hip is the opposite. It's a ball and socket joint, but it's maximally stable, but it has less mobility. The shoulder's got the other kind of issue. It's not as stable, but it's got lots of mobility. And swimmers, they definitely have issues. Now, it can come from strength and it can come from mobility. It depends. But certainly for swimmers to be a high level functioning swimmer, you have to have the proper mobility in the shoulder as much as strength. It's probably just as important.
And you know what? I think a lot of people have shoulder, lack of mobility, right? Like obviously you mentioned there that you can sacrifice some stability if you become too mobile, but I see people all the time, myself included, like my shoulder mobility is very limited. How do you improve shoulder mobility?
So it can be. So there's three really big areas for swimmers that need to be addressed in order for them to function swimming. One is the length of their lats. So a very simple thing, if you're sitting up tall and reach your hand as far over your head as you can, and if you were laying on your back and you can't get your arm against the floor, you probably have some issues with the length of your latissimus, that muscle. And there's a
under your armpit for anybody in radio world, right?
And down the outside of down the back side and the outside of your armpit. You got it. And if you're laying on the ground and you bend your knees and do that, and then you do it with them straight, if there's a difference between the two, you probably have an issue with the length of your lat. And it's something that you do need to get proper mobility and proper length from in order to have success swimming. The next one is internal rotation. And that's the one that allows you to reach up behind your back. That's a very important motion to have. A good test for that one is actually, again, laying on your back on the floor and holding your shoulder down with your other hand, putting your elbow at like 90 degrees out to the side and trying to get your hand flat against the floor again. So that's downwards toward the floor. If you don't have at least 45 degrees in that direction, so I see you doing it. I love it. Lay with your back, kind of like your elbows are both your shoulders at 90 degrees, your elbows are at 90 degrees. And then what you're doing is you're bending and pivoting from the shoulder with your elbow still at 90 degrees. And you need to have at least 45 degrees there. Again, if you're listening and you're wondering, a physio is going to get you an answer on whether you've got issues with internal rotation very quickly. But if you don't have full internal rotation, you're not going to be able to, that's going to affect your stroke huge in swimming, because we internally rotate, especially with front crawl, but all of the motions, there's a lot of internal rotation goes into the swimming activity. And then the last one that people don't realize or pay attention to a lot of times with swimming is upper back mobility, thoracic mobility. So the ability to extend the spine directly is related to how much motion you're going to get out of the shoulder. So some people we actually will we check their shoulder joint and they might have really good range of motion in their shoulder, but they aren't succeeding or they're not getting the motion they want out of them. And we're actually ending up working on their upper back in order to get that mobility out of them. And that's super, super important.
Grant Fedoruk joins us from Leading Edge Physio. Back mobility, Grant, and I think it's something that probably a lot of average person, more people now sit down than ever have before for long periods of time, right? Just because of technology, and whether they're on their phone or whether they're at work, they're sitting down way more. Now, I know that obviously that's not healthy, and they talk about how we should get up every 50 minutes and clear that. But does the sitting lead to more back issues? Is that a bigger problem, or where is what's the biggest weakness we get from sitting so much?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And for swimmers, it can be one of the biggest things that causes problems with bad posture in sitting and being kind of with your chin forward and you're hunched over at the shoulders. That's directly going to lead to a lack of ability to extend the upper back. And the longer they're in those positions, it's going to impact an athlete's ability to swim. But anybody who's going to swim and wants full shoulder range of motion needs to work on it. Lower back, I mean, we can talk forever. This one's one of my favorite ones. If somebody's got disc pathology, they're going to know that sitting is one of the biggest things that causes problems. Flexion of the spine for a long period of time when you have a disc herniation is going to lead to direct irritation of it. And most people with a disc injury or who've had a disc injury, they're just learn that they can only sit for a certain period of time. They're the people that you're going to watch and they're sitting in a car for a little while and they have a tough time getting out of the car, or when they get out of the car, they're looking for a place to lay down on the ground. Sitting again, and we've had this conversation, sitting isn't the worst thing. Sitting improperly, not having the proper chair, not sitting in a good position, not sitting up tall, and not varying your position. That's probably the biggest one for people listening out there. Sitting isn't the worst thing, but sitting for long periods of time without giving yourself a break, really, that's where it's going to get a person, even an athlete.
You mentioned earlier, Grant, about obviously the importance. The biggest muscles we have are in our lower body, and so for most sports, golf, everywhere else, you're going to generate a lot of your power and your force from that. Watching gymnastics to me is fascinating because it's such a unique combination of strength and power, flexibility, range of motion, and they're doing all these different, like the floor exercise compared to the balance beam. And then obviously the rings for the men, it's, the ridiculous upper body strength, but like athletes like that to be that fine tuned. How are they, this might sound like, are they more susceptible to injuries because they're just so tight, or are they less?
No. So I would actually say there's two things that are neat about gymnastics to me. Number one is I love seeing the change from gymnastics of the 70s and 80s, where you saw, it was the little dainty person. It almost looked like the smaller they were, the better the outcome would be. So I don't even know what their nutrition was like that back then. I don't know if they were trying to stay low weight. It wasn't not as in my opinion, not too healthy. Today, you see the power in those athletes. The female athletes, you can tell nutrition's playing a big role. They're developing those muscles properly. However, that being said, you watch what they're putting their body through and the reps and the amount of energy and effort and the time that they're putting into it. They are definitely, without a question, people who have physios and medical staff on call, because there are injuries that come from that sport. I treat a lot of gymnastic athletes. They are doing things with their body that, we're watching and going, how did they do that? And there's a reason why. It's because of repetitions and practice and strength training and developing very specific skill sets. And that's going to lead and make them more prone to injury because of specifically what they're putting themselves through. The forces that they're putting on their joints is incredible. The mobility that they've got in those joints is incredible. And then what they're expecting from them, also incredible. So definitely, if you're a gymnast out there, make sure you've got a good professional physio in your corner, because you're going to need them.
Grant Fedoruk joins us. One last one for you, Grant. When you watch and you see like all the training they're getting, physio, we saw Andre DeGrasse mention that he's got a slight hamstring issue. So he's still running, but, he tweaks it, and obviously maybe it limits him, and maybe subconsciously he's not giving his 100% because he's worried about pulling it. How do these guys, like if you have a hamstring strain for an elite level 100-meter sprinter, what do you do to work on it that allows them in 24, 48 hours to run again? Like, what are they doing?
Okay. First of all, it's going to have an impact on him no matter what. You tweaked or not tweaked, when things are separated by thousandths and hundredths of a second, things have to be firing on all cylinders in order to compete at that level. So there's no getting around the fact that it's going to impact him. Now, as he gets into some of those team events where, there's a little more time spread and he is still the fastest, even with that injury, let me answer that question. Neat thing about some of those athletes is they have access to things like deep tissue mobilization. IMS is a perfect example. We did a great opportunity to hear some of the Olympic athletes talk about how they manage their injuries using specifically IMS, which is a needling technique that releases the tissue and takes some of the stress off. That being said, when you have an actual hamstring tear or there's tearing in there, it really, at the end of the day, you're putting it through a certain amount of stress. You're certainly going to set yourself up for more tearing in there and more injury. There's no getting around that. However, at that level, they're going to take that risk. They're going to put themselves through it. So they are doing things like protection, rest, ice, compression, elevation, using ice to manage it right after the event. They're trying to keep as mobile and limber as they possibly can. So they'll have a trainer or a physio applying the right amount of force to that tissue without putting it too far and too much stress on it. Very specific, very subtle, not just a matter of putting your leg on the ground and doing a hurdler stretch, because in that position, you might actually be doing more harm than good. So that's where they've got these very high level professional, physical therapists and medical doctors who are sitting there working with them specifically for their injury and for their sport, making sure that it's looked after properly. They do have access to an entire Olympic, that village is full of medical professionals who know exactly what they need to do. And often at like a level of like Damian Warner and Andre DeGrasse and those guys, they specifically have their guy, that's been working with them, just them. And that's who comes with them on these events and to these events. And I think that's super valuable to have the person who knows your body and who's worked with you and knows what you expect of it and is willing to sit there and say, I know what you're going to do to your body, even though every part of me says you shouldn't. I know you're going to do it anyways. And I'm going to make sure that you're as healthy as possible. And I get that because this is the Olympics. It's not, it's not the weekend out at the farm throwing the football around.
No, and it's once every 4 years. That's what's great. It's not like you get, hey, you know what? We can get another chance next year. No. It's 4 years.
Yeah, and depending on where they are at in their career, it might be their last chance. So they're going to do it. They're going to do it. And, from a professional's point of view, ours is to give the athlete all the information they need to make a decision for themselves and then support them with that decision. And that happens in all sport. This level, you're right. I love what you just said. They got one chance and then it's not for another 4 years. So I tell you, they got to make the right decision there.
Grant, great stuff, man. We really appreciate it. Have yourself an awesome weekend.
I love the Olympics just like you do, Jason. My wife's man, I tell you, my household right now is Olympics 24/7. I can't get away from it. All the clinics, it's on every TV. Somebody said to me, you got TVs in all the clinics. What are you, like a sports bar? And I'm like, these clinics are built for the Olympics.
Yeah, it's true because it's unbelievable. Every different sport. I'll watch any sport in the Olympics. There's not one I've watched where I'm like, this is boring.
No, I'm absolutely hooked. I'm hooked on all volleyball right now. To me, those guys, like the guys and the girls, I love that the women's beach volleyball are moving on and everything. It's phenomenal, but holy moly, I look at hockey and all the sports and where they've advanced over time. I watch volleyball and it is mind blowing that anybody is willing or can get to one of those digs. Like it just is. I don't understand it. I remember when we used to smash a ball, it was nowhere near what they're hitting that ball and the velocity. Their serves are like 130. That's crazy to me. Getting a ball smashed at you at that pace. I love it. Yeah.
Like sometimes I'm like, I don't even know how they see it. I think they just go to a spot and hope it hits them.
Yeah, except that they don't. They actually put it where they need to put it. Yeah. You and we'd be literally just looking at each other like, did you just see that?
Could you get over the net? That would be the key. So, yeah. Absolutely. Awesome stuff, man. Appreciate it, Grant. Have a great day.
Okay, best to everybody.
There you go. That's Grant Fedoruk from Leading Edge. Video, let's get to the Con-Man, a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Booster Juice. And the ultimate summertime smoothies are back. You can dive into a wave of refreshment with the Watermelon Wave. Download the Boosters Reward app. Get one today only at Booster Juice.
This is the Sports 1440 update.
Montreal has won another medal for Canada at the Olympics in weightlifting, this time silver in the 59 kilogram category. She also won gold back in Tokyo in the 64 kilogram, but had to move down after her weight class was removed from the games. Canada's Skylar Park won bronze in women's taekwondo. In beach volleyball, Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humana-Pardy advanced to the gold medal match after defeating Switzerland in 3 sets. They'll take on Brazil in the gold medal match tomorrow at 2:30. Men's basketball, the U.S. rallied to come back and beat Serbia. They'll now take on France, who defeated Germany earlier today on Saturday for gold. Tip-off in that one gets going at 1:30. Major League Baseball, the Jays are in action. Vlad Guerrero looks to make it 20 straight games with a hit as they host the Orioles. First pitch set for 5:07. Right now, Giants and Nationals tied at 5 apiece. That one's in the top of the 10th. And you got the Mets leading the Rockies 7-1 in the 7th. Earlier today, Brewers beating up on the Braves 16-7. And the Pirates fall at home to the Padres 7-6. Week 10 in the CFL kicks off tonight. The Saskatchewan heads to Ottawa, taking on the Red Blacks. That'll start at 5:30. In the NFL, we got 2 preseason games, Patriots and Panthers. Also, Lions and Giants, both those games at 5. Coming up in hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show, we will be joined by Colin Livingston in the Cantork Race Report, as well as BC Lions head coach and co-GM Rick Campbell. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
It's Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to CKJR wherever you go.
Be melancholy, not melancholy. Summer is ripe for fun, and some Booster Juice bestsellers are back in season. Watermelon smoothies, including the refreshing Watermelon Wave, a berry burst of strawberries, raspberries, pomegranate, and vanilla frozen yogurt. And fan favorites, Watermelon Explosion, a refreshing burst of bananas, mangoes, and pineapple, both made with watermelon sorbet and probiotic yogurt. All of the watermelon, none of the seeds. Visit a Booster Juice near you today, or download the Booster Rewards app.
Rule number 116. In Waterton, walk with a lean. The wind will always prop you up. Summer in Alberta has its own set of rules. And if you're looking to add a little extra fun, Play Alberta has it all. Use promo code SUMMER to snag a $50 casino bonus for casino, instants, and live dealer with your next deposit. Get ready for promotions throughout the summer to help you make the most of those sunny Alberta days. Because we all know they don't last long enough. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
I take possession of my commercial space in 3 months. I need lighting. I need a fire alarm. I need data. I need a generator. I need panels.
Sounds like a job for the men and women of Action Electrical.
Projects team reporting. We design, build, and construct all the electrical systems for your projects. Need everything to work right? Get the Action Electrical project team on your site.
Facing an electrical menace? Call the men and women of Action. Operating throughout Alberta at actionelectrical.net.
Jonathan and Murray are friends.
Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy.
Except when they talk about which stadium is more fun in the summer.
Dude, Commonwealth has Elks Fan Park. Tailgating at its finest.
But it can't compare to the old ballpark in the River Valley.
That's still
Riverhawks games are electric.
But ask them who makes the best beef jerky in Alberta, and they'll tell you.
Wilhauk Beef Jerky.
It's the only thing everyone can agree on. So pick some up for your summer pregame snack.
Wilhauk beef jerky, because you don't win friends with salad.
What's cracking at Cattail Crossing? Take a shot in the dark with Night Golf. Just $61 per person for 9 holes and a glow ball rental. Get a team together, dress in glow gear, have dinner before Night Golf at Out of Bounds Restaurant. Book at cattailcrossing.ca.
The basketball show can be heard right here on Sports 1440. This is Paul Sir. Every Saturday morning from 10 a.m. to noon, we talk local, international, and professional basketball. Check it out this weekend on Sports 1440.
Sponsor PlayAlberta.ca. Alberta only regulation online gambling website where 100% of the revenue stays right here in the lovely province of Alberta. PlayAlberta.ca. Hey, Gregor, I take it you didn't watch the men's surfing gold medal match. 25 minutes of 2 guys floating around on their boards till the horn sounded and ended my misery from Hacksaw. No, I did not see that one. Are you telling me? So they never even got in a ride? Really? Well, yeah, that would be somewhat anticlimactic. Because, well, the key about surfing is you got to wait for the right wave. Otherwise, what's the point? Right? Like, obviously, all of us experienced surfers. We know that. Right? It's clear. Because, hey, if you've surfed at West Edmonton Mall, you're a surfer. Let's get to the race report a little bit early because our man's flying and they had to change the flight. So we'll get to the racing report brought to you by Cantork. And hey, they're always looking to improve. They've got improved quality control, ultimate flexibility, quicker turnarounds because they now have in-house machining capacity. Learn more at cantork.com or give them a call 436-2000 as Colin Livingston joins us once again. And Colin, man, to see the off season. Well, it's off season, in season. The F1's very unique because you get new drivers all the time. It seems like every week now you have a new seat that is filled. What do you make of the Haas decision?
Kind of a non-story almost. I mean, it's always good to see who's going where and what's available. But Haas really. They've shown a bit of progress, largely due to Hülkenberg. But yeah, I mean, next year will be kind of interesting. I'm still kind of going back to the fact that we should be using the summer break for me to take a bit of time and write up some new live liners, because I think you've played that one out a little bit. We might have to come up with something new here while we got a bit of racing downtime.
Yeah, we'll get on it. Okay, get on it.
I got 4 hours in front of me here, so maybe I'll whip out the keyboard.
Now, FIA has amended part of their penalty process that if a driver withdraws from a race and cannot serve their penalty, it will be applied at the next race. Was this something that happened regularly where guys, I got a penalty, so I'm just going to withdraw, so then I don't have the penalty against me? Like, I don't know. Is this that big of a rule change?
It kind of is, because in a lot of cases, a driver will cause an accident. 2 drivers will end up out of the race, but they were applying, they would apply the penalty to the driver who caused it. But if he was already out of the race, they would just, you would finish, 20th, but they would apply a 5-place grid penalty, which meant that you finished 22nd, which didn't change anything. Yes. So what they're doing is making sure that there's a little bit of consequence to the action. I mean, it was kind of extreme, but the last race at Spa, not because of on-track stuff, but Yuki Tsunoda took 4 extra power unit components, which gave him a 61-place grid penalty, which obviously, basically he had to start from the garage. So he didn't quite, take the full ramification, but now they're free and clear for the next, at least, hopefully they get through the next 4 races with their components before they have to take more penalties. But yeah, I mean, more than anything, it's for these guys who are causing on-track incidents, but never really facing the ramifications other than maybe some penalty points. So definitely a good change going forward.
Colin Livingston joins us in the Cantork Racing Report. Adrian Newey, I read an article, Colin, that said he might get $100 million over 4 years, $25 million a year. That puts him, I think it's only Verstappen and Hamilton who make more than him. Is this the norm? Is he that important? Is he going to make Aston Martin this competitive? Assuming he goes there.
Is he worth that much is whether or not he actually signs the deal. But the money is actually secondary, in my opinion, because what it seems like he's really angling for is he wants pretty much complete control of the engineering department, as well as, veto power on anything that happens to the car, which really puts your team principal and a lot of your upper management in a really compromising position. In the early days of the Newey sweepstakes, it seemed like it was a no-brainer for him to move over to Ferrari, but it seemed like the stumbling block was that they were willing to pay the money, right, but they weren't willing to give him that carte blanche to say, listen, yes, you are essentially the Messiah, and we're going to let you do whatever you want. And I think Ferrari is probably right to let him go, because with Aston Martin and with Lawrence Stroll, there's a lot of ego that goes into that program. And obviously, I'm not saying that from a negative standpoint. We all have ego when we put on a race suit or a helmet. But he wants to have the best of the best of the best. But as we've seen so many times, I mean, if you can remember some of the old style New York Yankees teams, they had ultimate players. They were paying the biggest salaries, and they very rarely were able to actually close the deal because those players didn't have any chemistry with each other. They weren't able to actually work as a team. Everyone was an individual.
Right.
And I think that's probably what's going to end up happening with Aston Martin. Although it seems a little bit more probable now that if they sign Newey, which it seems like they will, because it just doesn't seem like anybody else is in the fight besides Aston and Ferrari, that could lead, especially with Aston switch to Honda engines coming up, that it could lead to Max Verstappen being more interested in jumping to them instead of Mercedes if he in fact decides to leave Red Bull. So as we've got some of the seats being filled, and Carlos Sainz is over at Williams next year, there's still a lot that can happen here before the end of the year.
Moving to IndyCar, Canapino and Hollinger have agreed to mutually separate. I'm always curious if it's actually mutual or not, but what do you make of this? And what do you think what does this mean for Canapino?
That's a great question. Canapino obviously has money behind him. So for it to be mutually agreed, he's obviously taking his sponsors with him. Canapino's had a really tumultuous run with a lot of off-track incident. We've talked about a lot of that stuff with some of the threats that were levied against other drivers that would get involved with him on track. Juncos Hollinger was really careful in how they worded the press release to aggravate people to the least extent. I don't know if he's going to resurface, and they haven't really given any indication who will fill that seat. Although Connor Daly was doing some testing in his car over the last week. Okay. It would be great to see Connor, get another chance to show what he's got. I can't say I know him well. I actually spotted for him when we did the Rolex 24 a couple of years ago. I know he's a great guy, just really underfunded, so never really got a chance in proper equipment to show what he has to offer. But they'll have to make a decision fairly quickly because IndyCar comes back pretty quick for the Oval at St. Louis. I can't remember. I think it's next weekend.
Yeah. But so that was my question. Like, it's kind of odd. Like, to me, IndyCar, look at some of their decisions. I'm like, when F1's on the break, that's when IndyCar should be racing. That's just my opinion. I don't know. Maybe there's more to it that I'm missing. It's like their 5-week break after they race once to start the year. It seems odd to me. There is racing, though. You're heading out NASCAR Canada. You and Tagliani will be back together at the GP 3R Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. A lot of people think it's the best race on the circuit. What makes this Trois-Rivières race so popular?
Well, first of all, I used to say the entire town gets behind the event. I mean, there are definitely some not in my backyard people that raise a bit of a stink, but really the town from, the municipal government level up, really supports the event. If anyone's been there's kind of a pub district where the hotels are just off the river. They close it down to street traffic. So it almost turns into a festival where there's, Ferris wheel and, they used to have this massive fireworks display. Obviously Quebec is known for producing some of the best fireworks companies in the world. Last couple of years, because people complained, they got rid of the fireworks and did this crazy awesome drone show. I think the fireworks might be back this year, but I can't say for sure. But even without that, like the fans that come to the race, I mean, first of all, this is the longest standing street race in North America. It's held everything from Formula One down at one point to another. legendary. Like I say that an awful lot, but this is truly a legendary circuit. Once you get through turns 1 and 2, kind of throw down the hill, go through the Duplessis Arch. I still distinctly remember watching Formula Atlantic races that were broadcast on TSN way back in the day, and just thinking how cool it was that was somewhere that people were actually able to race. And now, I've never been able to race a car through there, but fortunately, through a couple of wins with Tag, I've been able to jump on the back of the pickup and ride through there a few times. But just the fans just support it. They're just crazy passionate, and the energy that we get when we're doing the autograph session, the people line up for 45 minutes. There will be probably 5,000 people on the front straightaway, really? But they're just super, super, super passionate, like very friendly, very knowledgeable, kind of like a Habs fan, but for racing, they just know what's going on. They know all the drivers. Most of them will like present a gift to the driver. They have something that they've made with their favorite driver's, likeness on it. Just everything about the event is top floor.
Well, Colin, enjoy that. Hopefully, no more flight delays. We're glad we could switch things up and get you on today. So fly safe. Good luck this weekend.
If anything, I got to give Air Canada credit because we didn't get delayed. They said that there might be a delay, so why don't you fly out early? So yeah, I got to take my hat off to these guys.
All right, well there you go. We don't hear that very often, so it's a good positive flight story. So thanks, Colin. Have a good one.
Thanks, man.
There you go. That's Colin Livingston in the Racing Report, brought to you by Cantork. It is I just look at IndyCar sometimes and I wonder what they're doing. We all know that F1's the big dog in open wheel racing. And Indy's doing very well, but when they plan their time off. Why wouldn't you maximize and have more races when they're off? Because some of their fans might be like, okay, let's check out some open wheel racing. I don't know. Maybe there's more to it that I'm missing, but it seems like a missed opportunity for sure. Coming up, we got lots of text line in at 833-401-1440, 833-401-1440. Rick Campbell, the head coach of the BC Lions, they're in town without their starting quarterback. We'll talk about that, defending Trey Ford, and more when we return to the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Why tee off at the Ranch Golf and Country Club?
A fun, unique layout offering premier conditions. The Ranch has been ranked as one of the top public courses in Canada.
Unmatched value. Score Golf Magazine rated the Ranch as the best value in Edmonton.
The service, from tournaments to special events to the pro shop. Superior service that makes every visit exceptional.
The Ranch Golf and Country Club, a laid-back environment where anyone can enjoy an amazing day on the fairways. For details, visit theranchgolf.com.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium roast coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to
call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort in your wallet with no payments or interest for 1 year.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
You deserve comfort. Cool off today with AC from Legacy Heating and Cooling.
The Brick is celebrating its 53rd birthday with fantastic deals in every department. Take up to 25% off dining and bedroom furniture and up to 40% off mattresses. And buy more, save more. Up to $400 off select major appliances. And don't forget about back-to-class favorites like desks starting at $74.95. Small appliances starting at $99. And mattresses at just $169. Some exclusions apply. See in-store for details. The Brick, saving you more.
If you've ever restored a classic car or seen one,
you smile. Because you know what it took to get that beauty looking pristine. The same is true for men who restore their hair. Nothing but smiles for miles. Patients from all over Canada travel to see me, Dr. Vance Elliott, to have their hair loss treated and remedied. I've been helping people for 28 years. My practice is outfitted with the most innovative and latest hair transplant techniques and technology. And I do it myself. Contact us at drvanceelliott.com.
The Toronto Blue Jays are on Sports 1440. Every weekend, catch all the action with play-by-play announcer Ben Schulman. The Blue Jays, this Saturday and Sunday on Sports 1440. Edmonton's home for all things sports.
I'm Rick Showers from No Bull RV. Anything that's exposed to the elements or has moving parts needs regular maintenance. And when you consider an RV, well, it falls into both categories. Lots of moving parts and sitting out all the time, which is why we hired the best RV technicians in Alberta to come work here at our new, bigger store in Leduc.
Noble has giant indoor service space that can hold the biggest RVs in the world.
That's right, Bob. The vast majority of our indoor space at No Bull is dedicated to service and repair. You spend the summer in the great outdoors, and we spend the winter doing scheduled maintenance, so you're ready to go next season.
Sounds like a year-round thing, Rick.
That's it exactly, Bob. Our techs are the most highly experienced men and women in the business. We're solving problems and creating solutions every day. Whatever your used RV needs, our service team has seen it before and knows exactly what to do.
And that's No Bull.
NoBullRV.ca.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium roast coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
Does your bank do local? We do. When you bank with Vision Credit Union, you're banking with a rural Albertan cooperative that cares about the community where you live. There's no question. We actively support our rural communities at the local level through charitable donations, volunteerism, local team and event sponsorships, and by returning millions in profit shares to our members every year. Does your bank do that? We do local. Bank with Vision Credit Union. VisionCU.ca.
Hey, it's Scott from Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. It's our final clear out of classic Ram 1500 trucks, and I do mean final. This is your last chance to get 25% off a brand new Ram truck. We still have some inventory left, but when they're gone, they're really gone. Or get an iconic Jeep Wrangler with up to $7,500 off. 0% financing available on every model. And we have a couple of the rare 500 horsepower 392 Wranglers in stock now. St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, Edmonton's best rated Ram and Jeep dealers.
Well, I guess it's technically 3, but in the 64 kilogram back then, Skylar Park has won Canada's first Olympic medal in Taekwondo in 16 years. She got a bronze. Wilkerson and Humana Paradis are guaranteed at least a silver as they've moved on into the final for beach volleyball. So that guarantees at least 22 medals. We got shot put where we're looking very good and a few others. So Canada, which had 24 medals 3 years ago, looking to break it. Connor also has put the Connor Halley guarantee on the Wiz or the Wizard. I don't think I want to call him the Wiz. This is in Seinfeld. The Wizard in breaking. An elite breakdancer, according to Connor Halley, who is our breakdancing insider, suddenly on the show.
Those who can't do become insiders.
Oh,
that's my status here.
Well, that's from all the guys I know who are insiders. That's very accurate, actually. That's very, very accurate. Let's get to our football report, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, home of the no payments, no interest for 1 year on your AC unit. Stay cool all summer long at legacyheating.ca. And we are joined by the head coach of the BC Lions. Of course, many of you know him, a longtime member of the Edmonton Eskimo, back then Eskimos organization, of course, being the head coach for the BC Lions. Has won great cups. Rick Campbell joins us. Rick, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
Good to talk to you. How are you doing?
You know what? I'm pretty good. It's man, the CFL season, it's always ups and downs. The Elks finally get a win. No surprise for me because they played Trey Ford. You guys suffer a pretty tough loss, not only on the scoreboard, but more so to your starting quarterback, Vernon Adams. Can you update us on where he's at? We know he's not playing this weekend, Rick, but how long before you get him back behind center?
Yeah, when we say week to week, we mean it. So, we'll see if he's ready we play Winnipeg the next week. And if I would guess 1 or 2 games, that's kind of what it looks like right now. So we think we did dodge a bullet on that one. It could have been something a lot worse when you're dealing with knees, but nothing structurally wrong. And so we'll look forward to having him back sooner than later.
So how much does your offense change, if any, as far as play calling with him out?
Well, our playbook doesn't change. I mean, our Jake Dolagala, who's with us, knows all the reads, knows all the concepts, all those things. So, we can be selective as far as what we run. But Jake is mobile. He's not going to run like VA runs, but he's a guy that can move around. Understands the CFL. Started 9 games for Saskatchewan last year, so. The playbook will be open, and we'll run what we run.
It almost seems, Rick, nowadays that you need 2 quarterbacks if you want to win and go deep in the playoffs at some point in the CFL. It doesn't mean you necessarily need both in the playoffs, but a lot of times to get there, lately it seems you're going to need 2 quarterbacks who can be competent and play.
Yeah, no question. That's been true for us every year I've been in BC. So, and when I was head coach in Ottawa, it was true then too, is you really need 2 guys to get it done. I'm just thinking off the top of my head in the CFL, even this year, we're only 8-9 games in, and I think everybody's used 2 quarterbacks except maybe Calgary, and I don't know. I think everybody else maybe have used at least 2. So that's why we always make a point in the off season of signing someone with experience, so that when you do have something happen to your first guy, that they can step in and you hope not to miss a beat and try to get some important wins.
Rick, you've been around long enough you could probably list off the dangerous quarterbacks who can throw but then have the ability to scramble. And because I don't call them you got to throw first to be successful. Damon Allen's one of the best rushers we've ever seen, but the guy could throw. Same with Doug Flutie, etc. Trey Ford comes in last year for the Elks, went 4-6 and got a little bit of excitement for them. Then he got his first start last week, and their offense put up over 500 yards. They ran all over Saskatchewan, being the best defense in the league. When you have to game plan for a quarterback, especially in the ROP, how different is it from a defensive coordinator standpoint when you go up against a guy like Ford compared to a Bethel Thompson, who the threat of running is very minimal?
Yeah, and Trey's a legit runner. He's a 4-4 guy. He's not a guy that can run. He can really run. So, keeps you honest. Obviously, in your pass rush lanes, he really can make explosive plays when he scrambles around and buys time. So, you got to be smart up front and not giving him just obvious escape lanes, and then you got to be good in the back end. As you can't spend your time looking in the backfield of the quarterback running around. You need to make sure you're paying attention to the receivers, whether it's man or zone, and make him, earn his way down the field. And it'll be a tough task for us.
Do you have to, does your outside pressure guys, not that they can't blitz, Rick, but do they have to be more cautious than they would against a pure pocket quarterback who doesn't have a threat to run? Is that part of it? Does it change a little bit how you attack at all?
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely does. So it's just, you know that he can escape and buy time, but at the same time, you can't be so conservative that you just let him stand there forever. So you try to do some things where you can have, whether you're spying a guy or doing whatever to if a guy does lose contain or something, you got someone else there to make it right. So yeah, you absolutely prepare differently for quarterbacks that can run around, and so we'll have to do that. We have played him before. We played him last year. Trey started the game against us last year, so it's not like he's brand new on the scene, but good player, good for the CFL, and we just don't want him to have too good a game on Sunday.
Rick Campbell joins us. I'm guessing, Rick, since the young age of, I don't know, you were like you were born into the CFL, right? You've watched it as a young kid because of your dad, and then of course play football. Then you've coached for a long, long time. And like when you see teams like Vernon Adams has emerged as a real elite quarterback, and the more elite quarterbacks, the better the league is. So as much as it's a challenge, do you get excited when the league has more top end quarterbacks?
No question. Yeah, I mean, if you're a fan of the CFL, which I am, then it's quarterbacks all the way. I don't care if you're talking CFL or NFL or whatever it is. That if you don't have a quarterback, it doesn't work right. So while of course we want to win games, I'm always rooting for teams that have quarterbacks because it's going to be good for the overall health of the league. So I'm always happy when new quarterbacks come in. The one blessing in disguise of last year is there were some guys that had to step in, and in Edmonton and Hamilton and in Ottawa and stuff that had to step in, and guys that look like they can hang around in the CFL for a while. So absolutely, it's a quarterback-driven league, and I'm all for good quarterbacks. I just want to make sure we can beat them when we play them.
When you look at the fact that the new rule change, Rick, that you're allowed 2 quarterbacks, we haven't really seen it yet. How come?
It's the idea seems good. I think it's always going to be more of a package thing. So we actually played Winnipeg earlier this year, and they actually lost so many receivers that Streveler was just playing receiver full time. So they had Caleros and him on the field, for multiple plays in the game, but that was more out of necessity. So it also takes to make sure you have the right skill set of 2 guys that can complement each other. So I don't think you're ever going to make a true living in 3-down football of just running too many gadget plays with 2 quarterbacks. But is there a place for it? Absolutely. Can there be a package? Absolutely. It's just not going to be something you're going to see on a steady basis.
Now, is it because it's too confusing, maybe, Rick? Is like in theory, I look and say, man, you put 2 quarterbacks out there, defense is wondering what happens, or is it once you snap the ball to one, it's not that confusing?
It's not that confusing.
Okay.
You can like I said, there can be a package of plays, but if you treat the guy that's not the quarterback as just another football player on the field, there's only a certain amount of things you can do. So I'm not saying you can't create some big plays and run some type of package. It would just be hard to do on a steady basis.
Rick Campbell joins us, head coach of the BC Lions. They're in town on Sunday to take on the Edmonton Elks. Rick, outside of your quarterback, are you expecting any other significant changes to your roster?
We'll see. We're getting a DB back, Manny Rugamba, which he'll be good to have. He's a guy that started for us the last year and this year, and so that'll be good to have back. And we're kind of slowly gaining guys back. So Vernon obviously highlights the deficiency right now, but overall we've been pretty healthy, and hope to stay that way.
William Stanbeck has been a very consistent rusher for a few years, and you know what? I think he's might be 3rd in the CFL in carries and in yards. When you bring in a new quarterback, you said your playbook doesn't change, but obviously what you call changes. Is there more of an emphasis on a guy like Stanback in your eyes when you don't have Vernon Adams?
Yeah, we need to use him regardless. Even when we do have VA, we do make an emphasis of trying to use him, and we want to try to be as balanced as possible. That's the ideal world you live in as an offense, is that you're a legit threat to run, and it just helps with play action and passing and running screens and all those things. So he's a good player and a good all-around back. He can pass protect. He can catch the ball out of the backfield, and we've used him that this year, but we need to continue to make him a point of emphasis.
Looking overall, Rick, as your role, you've been in the league this long now. I'm always curious how you feel. Maybe how have you had to change as a head coach from a decade ago?
How have I had to change? I think the name of the game is keeping players available. So it's not about always how long you practice and how physical things are, because if the players aren't healthy, then it doesn't matter. So I always try to make sure that we are doing everything we can to get the work in that we need to do, and at the same time be low on the injury thing. And I've been proud the last few years we are definitely on the low end of injuries, and I'm not just saying that's because of me, but we try to make efforts on, regardless of what it is, how we structure practice, how we treat our players, all those things, is try to keep people as physically available as possible, because you need your good guys to win games.
Yeah, no question. I also want to ask you, the Edmonton Elks are closing in on going from a community-owned team to a privately owned team, and BC is a great example of bringing in a different owner, and it's really kind of turned things around, and there's lots more excitement in the city. There's more success with the team. You spent a long time in both sides, Rick. Is there a noticeable difference from community-owned to privately owned from a coaching perspective?
Not if everything's running well and everything's running right. I don't think you would ever think about that as a player or coach, that you're that you have a private owner, that it's community owned. I think at the end of the day, I think everybody, including fans and everyone, just wants to have a good, strong organization where you always have a chance to win. And we're totally lucky here in Vancouver that Amar Doman is our owner here, because he's in it for the right reasons. So if the Edmonton ends up with anyone that's anywhere near like Amar is, that'll be good for Edmonton and good for the good for the CFL. Like I said, for a CFL fan, and I always have, Edmonton's always had a soft spot in my heart. I'm always hoping for good things.
And Rick, one last one for you. I'm always curious. We see little rule tweaks here and there. Is there a rule that you would like to see changed at all in the CFL?
I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. I do sit on the rules committee for us. I'm our representative, and we always try to tweak things. The one theme I've been on the last couple of years is let's try to make sure we're really good at what we're doing and how to officiate it and how to understand it and all that. So okay. That is number one for me, is that if we're going to make a change, let's not just throw stuff at the wall. Let's make sure we think things through. And I think the kickoff things are going to be coming up here. It almost came through last year, and I think this next year there'll be some type of tweak to it, whether it's just less kickoffs or how it's structured. So that's the one I would keep an eye on coming down. It'll be interesting to see how the NFL looks with their new kickoffs happening.
So do you think it would be similar to the NFL?
The one that was that, I don't know. I don't know, with the wind and everything happening up here. I don't think it's that easy, but after a field goal, you have the choice to just scrimmage the ball or have the other team kick off. You could do that after touchdowns too. So you wouldn't be taking kickoffs out of the game. There would be one to start the game. There would be one to start the second half. And if you got a hot shot returner or the wind or those things, you could make the other team kick off. So, we already do it on field goals. It could be an option on touchdowns, and I don't view it as taking special teams out or returners out. I think it's just trying to keep players available, and when the ball's kicked off, make it really count. So that could be an option, and then we'll see how this whole NFL thing goes. But I'm all for keeping special teams in the game.
Oh God, yeah, like punt or kickoff returns are great, but they're right now, as you said, that after a field goal you have the option. So basically, you just open up the option to after touchdowns to do the same thing, which makes sense.
You could, and you just have less kickoff.
Yeah.
So, and 7 or 8 years ago, they changed it to where you had to take a kickoff after a field goal.
Yes.
And it was just too much, and so we switched back to the way it was, and no one really lost their mind over that. So. We just got to evolve, be smart, and make tweaks to the game that are smart. And also, realize we're living in 2024 and make sure we're, being smart in the way we take care of the players without compromising the fun of the game.
Rick, always going to catch up with you, man. We'll see you at the stadium on Sunday. Good luck.
Yeah, I look forward to coming back to Edmonton. It's always good to come back there.
You betcha. That's Rick Campbell. Also, one of the deepest voices going as a longtime coach. Classic. Absolutely. He could have a radio voice. So interesting to see that. And you know what? I think it makes sense, right? If you throw in the option, if you have a good return guy, you're like, you know what? Let's load it up. Otherwise, we'll just take the ball, scrimmage right after the touchdown, away we go. I don't think it's going to be that drastic of a difference, but something to watch for. 341, Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. When we return, a gentleman who watches more hockey than maybe anyone I know will join us next on The Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Rule number 37. Oak Island mosquitoes don't believe in personal space. Keep bug spray ready at all times. Summer in Alberta has its own set of rules. And if you're looking to add a little extra fun, Play Alberta has it all. Use promo code SUMMER to snag a $50 casino bonus for casino, instance, and live dealer with your next deposit. Get ready for promotions throughout the summer to help you make the most of those sunny Alberta days. Because we all know they don't last long enough. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
The locks are on a timer. They're going to get out.
Sounds like a job for the men and women of Action Electrical.
Service team reporting. With the remarkable reach of our bucket trucks and other equipment, we assess, service, and maintain your electrical lighting and automation systems.
Facing an electrical menace? Call the men and women of Action. Operating throughout Alberta at actionelectrical.net.
Hey, it's Brad McCory here from St. Albert Dodge. I'm here to say you do not want to miss our final clear out of classic Ram 1500 trucks. It really is your last chance to drive a brand new Ram truck off the lot with 25% off. When these are gone, they're gone. Or how about a Jeep Wrangler with up to $7,500 in savings and 0% financing on every model? Come see how we earn our industry-leading 4.6 Google review rating. You're going to love how easy it is to do business at St. Albert Dodge.
The Cheesy Burger Pizza is back at Papa John's. See what happens when you ask for it? Boom! Finally, it's on the menu again for a limited time. Get all the items in the Cheesy Burger Trio or choose between the large Cheesy Burger Pizza for $18.99, Cheesy Burger Papadilla for $9.99, and Bacon Cheesy Burger Papa Bites for $8.99. All made with sizzling beef, dilly pickles, ooey gooey cheese, and burger sauce. That's right, burger sauce. Get it before it's gone. Better ingredients, better pizza. Better get you some Cheesy Burger Pizza at Papa John's.
A premier hockey solution with a clear path for long-term development is proud to be entering its 8th season of independent borderless hockey, featuring provincial and cross-province competition with showcase style, regular season gameplay, and a strong commitment to individual skill development. It's an attractive option for those seeking family life balance. The Hockey Super League offers opportunities for both male and female athletes born between 2011 and 2016. Visit hockeysuperleague.com for more information.
Modern Air and Water is your source for AC, furnace, duct cleaning, and water purification systems. Get a 12-year parts and labor warranty and save up to $2,500 on a complete new system. Contact your Lennox Premier dealer at modernairwater.com.
The Brick is celebrating its 53rd birthday with fantastic deals in every department. Take up to 25% off dining and bedroom furniture, up to 40% off mattresses, and buy more, save more, up to $400 off select major appliances. Plus, save up to $1,400 on day and night furniture, and don't forget about back-to-class favorites, like desks starting at $74.95, small appliances starting at $99, and mattresses starting at just $169. Some exclusions apply. See in store for details. The Brick, saving you more.
Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you, Sports 1440. Now, here is a story that you didn't know you needed to know, but now you will know. For the first time in Major League Baseball history, there are more Jackson's first name than Jackson's last name. Just thought you'd point that out. There's your obscure stat of the day. So more first name Jacksons in MLB right now than last name Jacksons. So, in case you're wondering, there are 6 first name Jacksons, which ties the second most last name Jacksons ever. There, of course, was 7 one season back in 1986, I think it was. So there's your obscure, meaningless stat of the day. It's great. Let's talk a little hockey now, as we get to our big guest of the day, brought to you by Silent Rides Charter Company, one of Alberta's premier bus charter companies. State-of-the-art motor coaches that will take all your teams, hockey, basketball, volleyball, football, you name it, drive around and get you there in style and safety. Book your ride today at silentrides.ca. As we are joined, he's in town for the Hlinka Gretzky tournament, and of course works at dailyfaceoff.com. And this guy spends more time in an arena and watching hockey games online than I think any human being I know. Stephen Ellis joins us. Steve, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, and I got to share a story about a recent hockey game I watched, Jamaica versus Greece. So it was in Oshawa outside of Toronto, and Jamaica had Giovanni Smith, plays in the San Jose Sharks, a couple college players on both teams, 100-something penalty minutes in this game. So many players were kicked out. One guy got kicked out for pointing at the ref's mustache and making fun of it. Another player got kicked out of the game for head contact, took off his jersey and put a different jersey back on and tried to get back on the ice.
Come on.
It was great.
So now what would make you want to go watch a Jamaica hockey game?
What else do you do on July 5th? Honestly, it's for me, before I followed prospects, I probably watched the most obscure hockey. I say that having watched 4 hockey games already today.
Yeah.
I was already watching an HC Davos game a few minutes ago. But when it comes to, I remember watching the start of Jamaica. I remember when they first started playing hockey a couple of years ago. I remember when Lebanon played their first game. So seeing them up close in person was cool. Was it worth a 2-hour drive? Absolutely. Because these are they were college players. Like, they were good guys. Like, it wasn't like guys learning to skate. Like, none of these players would be eligible to play.
Right.
But they were like an NHL player going out there trying to fight guys. It was pretty funny.
So you're here for the Hlinka Gretzky, and Finland, you were telling me during the break, like Finland's normally competitive. Like, they don't necessarily always have the most top end talent, but they find ways to come together at the U20s or U18s a lot of times, and they're competitive. Not this year. What is lacking on that Finnish team this season?
It's funny because this is usually Finland, like you said, like, they don't need to have the star players to go out there and do well. The World Championship in 2019, they didn't have a single NHL player on their team, and they beat a Canadian team with guys who will be in the Olympic race coming up. So I think when it comes to that, some years in Europe, you don't have the player base to grow from, and eventually you get guys who it just doesn't work out. And this year, the guys that were expected to be some of the more skilled players playing at 15, 16 years old at other levels just never grew. This is a very small team, and I think that's been an issue.
Okay.
And you go here, they have 3 goals in 3 games, and they're playing in the last place game. Like, in a normal tournament, this would be the relegation game they're playing in. This is one of the most successful junior hockey countries the last decade. So just some years it's an off year, and this year is a major off year.
How has Canada's team looked for you?
This isn't the most dominant Canadian team we've seen, but I think the one thing is they got just major pieces at every position. Jack Ivankovic, their goalie, is unbelievable. 5'11" goalie, could go in the first round, but that size is the big question mark.
Right.
His dad is 6'5", so we're kind of banking on that.
So you're thinking that he might be you should ask his dad, when did you grow? Did you have a growth spurt?
Well, I asked Jack, and he's like, well, like, we're hoping now. But the thing when it comes to him, it's like super athletic goalie. Like, I think he's going to be Canada's World Junior starting goalie in like a year or two. Like, that's how good of a goal he is. If he was invited to the camp this year, I wouldn't be surprised. Matthew Schaefer, a top 5 prospect in this draft, the best defenseman. He's been great. Obviously, Gavin McKenna, a lot of eyes on him. I think he's been quieter than it felt like he was there because they wanted to market it. Like, hey, here's a superstar prospect playing in the summer to try to get some eyeballs. He's got a couple points. He started off good, but he's been kind of quiet since then. Didn't do anything in Slovakia. He scored the game winner against Sweden, but quiet other than that. But it's still a good team. I still expect them to go for gold.
Now, McKenna being quiet surprised you because, man, I watched him in the Western League last year, and I was just like, oh, this kid's still got 2. Now, he's late birthday, but he's 2 years still from being drafted. Like, when you get to the 2026 draft, I'm thinking teams are going to be drooling over the fact that they can get McKenna.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think with him, I feel like there's just not a ton of motivation for him to be here. Like, that's the only kind of guess as to why it hasn't really worked out for him, because we saw him with the U18s was, the way he played would have been an MVP performance pretty much most years. Just James Haggins on USA happened to be better. And he went out there and scored, I think it was 4 goals in that championship game, and was one of the most dominant single performances I've ever seen in not only in international hockey, but in junior hockey. And I've watched Connor McDavid at that same level. And when it came to just the way he played there was outstanding. Here, it just feels like he's not pushing as hard. He's trying to do a bit too much too many times instead of using his teammates. But it's not going to change the fact he's the best prospect for 2026.
A tournament like this, it's been around for a long time. And, some people have a good tournament or a bad tournament. Like, you scouted a lot, Stephen. Like, how much stock, if any, do you put in this? Or is this more of a just, hey, maybe I'll see a guy that hasn't caught my eye? Like, do you come to this tournament and look for players that you maybe haven't had as many views on, rather than look to see if the best guys are the best guys?
That's exactly it. Last year, one of my favorite defensive prospects was a guy who was drafted in the 7th round, Jacob Fibiger, but it was this tournament where he really kind of put his name on the map, and scouts started to look, and then he signed a deal in the OHL. One guy I really wanted to see this year was Blake Fiddler, the Vern Fiddler's son, and Edmonton Oil King. Yeah. And he's played really well. And, these guys are playing a little bit out of their element, maybe not getting the same, like getting more ice time than they would usually in some of their junior leagues, and going out there and really impressing. So I think this is just a time to kind of see everybody in person, see where they're at, and get to know players that you wouldn't see often, like guys in Europe where you don't get to see those players in person. This is where you get to do it.
Stephen Ellis joins us. Of course, the Gretzky Hillenka tournament ongoing wraps up here in the next few days. And has there been any players I don't care what country they're on, that you've been like, oh, this guy is now caught my attention?
One player I'd never heard of before this tournament was Matthew Lansing, a center, and one of the fastest guys out there, just doing a whole lot. Kind of reminds me a lot of Oliver Moore, on now Chicago Blackhawks prospect, who is like a human race car. He's just one of the fastest players around there. He kind of reminds me of that type of work ethic. Been very fond of Jackson Smith, the defenseman. I think that's a guy that's not only been physical, but he's been very mobile and doing stuff there. And Radim Mrtka out of Czechia, I was told he was playing started the tournament with an injury. You couldn't tell it the way he's moving out there. 6'6", like 220 pounds. He's crushing guys. He's deked players out of their pants, basically, the ways he's making some of those moves. So those are the guys that I'm kind of looking at and saying, like, I'm glad I came to see these guys.
Now, I talked to you right after the draft, and, because I try to avoid like the instant, oh, this team won the draft, this team lost the draft. I'm like, come on. You tell me in 24 hours we know who won or lost the draft. Like, we won't know for probably 7 years if guys, where they are in the draft. But for Oiler fans out there, what do you make of O'Reilly, who, it's kind of rare. I'm not saying it's a bad move. I kind of like it. If you're like, if I think this kid's good, I'll trade my first rounder next year, because I think it's going to be a late first rounder. And whether or not it might be 32 or 31, but it might be 30, might be 28. Like, it's probably not going to be a significant difference. Well, what did you make of the deal, number one? And then B, what do you make of the player?
So that was one of the biggest risers in that second half of the draft. And I'd say specifically kind of like the last month or two. And if you remember back when the Leafs drafted Easton Cowan, also a London Knights player, everyone was like, whoa, where did that come from? And he just kind of ended the season on this hot streak. But it's like, wow, really, at 28, that feels high. That's kind of the same sense I'm getting here. They clearly see something in him, because to trade an asset that could have been valuable at the trade deadline, which if you look at like the last couple of years, like first round picks aren't being Vladimir Tarasenko wasn't traded for a first round pick. So what are you going to get? Like, it's almost like they're not in play as much as you'd kind of expect during the season. But to go out there and get a guy that scouts are so high on, they were not going to be able to get that second pick. I think it was smart because the growth we saw from him in October compared to December, compared to April, it felt like a completely different player. So I think that it was a great gamble to get up. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think that most scouts that saw that pick said, yeah, that was smart. That was a good call.
And the interesting thing is, I look at it and say, let's say Riley goes in and has a really good year. He would actually be a more valuable asset than a potential first round pick in 2025 because every scout now has had an extra, at that point, almost an extra full season of seeing him as a player compared to the guy who you might get at 28, 29, 30.
And this draft, 2024, I think is going, like, we're looking back, I don't think the 2025 draft will be as strong.
Okay.
So they get the guy that they want. It's still early, obviously. We're still watching through this tournament, but not a lot of talent out of Finland. Like we're talking about, some of these other countries are not developing the same stars. The American group is probably the weakest from their national team development program that we've seen in a while. So if you like the guy, just go get him right now. And he'll be ready, in theory, quicker than someone they wait for next year.
Stephen Ellis Jones. Stephen, going to ask you, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. I got more to talk about the drafts, some of the other players, because I like having a guy who watches so many of these players that you can get, I think, a little bit better analysis. So if there's anybody out there you're curious about, send us a text, 833-401-1440 in our ewell inbox, 833-401-1440. Let's get to the con man and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Oilers Nation 7th annual golf tournament. It goes Friday, August 30th, down at Mill Woods, all in support of the Gregor Foundation. I'm telling you, it is a great time. It's a Friday before the long weekend. Ooh, baby. Want to start your long weekend early? Get signed up. There's a few spots left. You want to sign up as a foursome, even as a twosome, you can join. It's tons of Sports 1440 fans and Oilers Nation fans. You can go to nationgear.ca and sign up.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
Montreal has won another gold medal for Canada at the Olympic weightlifting event, this time silver in the women's 59-kilogram category. Canada's Skylar Park also winning bronze today in women's taekwondo, and Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humana-Party advancing to the gold medal match in beach volleyball after defeating Switzerland in 3 sets. They'll take on Brazil in the gold medal match tomorrow at 2:30 on the hard court. Men's basketball, the Americans rallied to beat Serbia 95-91. They'll now take on France, who defeated Germany earlier today on Saturday at 1:30 for the gold medal. Major League Baseball, Vlad Guerrero and the Jays taking on the Orioles just after 5 o'clock. Vlad currently in the midst of a 19-game hitting streak. Elsewhere, the Reds taking on the Marlins. Angels travel to the Bronx to battle the Yankees. Rays in St. Louis. Mariners host the Tigers, and the Phillies up against the Diamondbacks. Earlier today, the Giants knocked off the Nationals 9-5 in extras. It was the Brewers beating up on the Braves 16-7. Pirates fall to the Padres 7-6. And the Mets down the Rockies 9-1. In the CFL, we got Week 10 action kicking off tonight as Ottawa hosts Saskatchewan. That's starting at 5:30. And 2 games in the NFL's preseason. The Patriots host the Panthers, and the Lions in East Rutherford to take on the Giants. Both those games will start at 5 o'clock. In Hour 3 of the Jason Gregor Show, more with Stephen Ellis, a daily face-off, and we'll ask 5 questions. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440, Stingray Radio Station. CKJR broadcasts from West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin.
Download the free Stingray music app and listen wherever you go.
You see us working on the Yellowhead. You see us working on the LRT West project over on 104th Avenue. But what are we doing? We are GS Construction, and we're moving, upgrading, and repairing all of that underground infrastructure so that other work can go on. Things like maintaining water, wastewater, and stormwater draining services. Things you may take for granted, but definitely need. For 50 years, GS Construction has been laying the groundwork for your community. Find out more by going to gsconstruction.ca.
The cheesy burger pizza is back at Papa John's. See what happens when you ask for it? Boom! Finally, it's on the menu again for a limited time. Get all the items in the Cheesy Burger Trio or choose between the large Cheesy Burger Pizza for $18.99, Cheesy Burger Papadilla for $9.99, and Bacon Cheesy Burger Papa Bites for $8.99. All made with sizzling beef, dilly pickles, ooey gooey cheese, and burger sauce. That's right, burger sauce. Get it before it's gone. Better ingredients, better pizza. Better get you some Cheesy Burger Pizza at Papa John's.
Sunday
afternoon, your Edmonton Elks host the BC Lions for Country Day. Yeah! Before the game, there'll be country music and tailgate, a petting zoo for the kids, and cowpokes can ride the mechanical bull to win prizes. Tickets and more at GoElks.com.
The Toronto Blue Jays are on Sports 1440. Every weekend, catch all the action with play-by-play announcer Ben Schulman. The Blue Jays, this Saturday and Sunday on Sports 1440. Edmonton's home for all things sports.
Hey, sports fans, we've got a clear choice for you. At Crystal Glass, we provide customers with the perfect glass for any job. From home to auto and even commercial, installation or repairs, we're your team. Call 310 Glass or visit crystalglass.ca. Crystal Glass.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium roast coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
When I met you in the summer, to my heartbeat sound, we fell in love as the leaves turn brown.
Continue on with us in studio from dailyfaceoff.com. Now, do you know how many games you actually watched this year between live and then online?
I can tell you probably how many. He's not pushing as hard July 1st specifically, and it's 34. So
34 games since July 1st?
Yeah.
Now that includes the tournament.
Includes this is my second tournament in 2 weeks, so that also helps.
What other tournament did you go to?
The World Junior Summer Showcase. So
right,
Canada,
right.
USA, and then I went and saw those games, the Greece and everything. And I was watching again like 3 or 4 exhibition games today. I watched the Polish League this morning. I watched Australian League over the weekend.
So if the season officially begins and we go on the July 1st calendar, so here we are, it's August 8th and you're already at 34. So you're basically averaging a game a day overall. Now I know the tournaments help, but so would it be, is it safe to say that you watch 250 to 300 games over the course of a year?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Easy. It's funny. Like come weekend, if I'm not going to a game, I refuse to watch hockey. I'm like, all right, I watch hockey like 9 to 5 every day. I don't need to watch more, but it's a lot. Like I usually will have a lot of games just in the background too when I'm doing stuff. So like not totally focusing on it, but it's like in a day it will be multiple weeks usually.
So as a scout, when you're watching a game, are you like when you're live in the building and you don't have the ability to pause it?
Yeah.
Right. So you're live in the building. Do you go back and rewatch the game after to think that your notes match? Or is that too time consuming?
It depends. You know, like I'm trying to watch other stuff. I also try to have a life outside of hockey too. But
yeah, no,
like,
totally fair.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll try to. It kind of just really depends on what I need to see from a player. Like, you know, I go to a lot of previously Mississauga Steelheads games, and now going to be Brampton, and it's like I will know those guys really well because I see those guys a lot. But I go to see the other teams, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, like, you know, I like to watch other games. I don't want to necessarily rewatch that game. I want to find out what they do other times too.
Stephen Ellis joined us. So when you're, because we've had a few people text in, hey guys, I really like what Steve brings. I'm curious, how do you feel you get better as a scout? How do you work on being a better scout? That one comes in from Tim.
Just honestly, like talk to people and learn from them. And that's the thing. Like I kind of like, you know, remember one thing when I was working at the Hockey News, I learned a lot from Ryan Kennedy there, and he's like the prospect guy there, and he knows that stuff, and he's seeing what he has to say, and then just talking to other people in the community and get their inputs on players. Like I might really believe in somebody, talk to somebody else, and they'd be like, oh, this guy's got this major flaw. I may have missed it. There may have been a bias towards the guy, and I may have missed that. It's literally just talk to as many people as you possibly can.
I remember a scout told me, many years ago, he felt the best advice he got was, when you start watch guys and you look for what they don't do, you're missing all of what they do. And And it sounds very simple, but it's hard to, because everybody has a bias. And you know what? Geez, I don't like this player. And then he'll play a good game, but then he'll make one bad pass because you don't like his passing. And then that's what you focus on. And you forget, well, geez, he just made 3 really good defensive plays or something else, and it gets overlooked. So did you have a bias that you've had to be very aware and cognizant of?
Well, a lot of it is like, if I liked a guy at a young age, I got to make sure like those players change.
Yeah,
And, you know, that happens. Like I watch a lot of the OHL Cup is one of my favorite events, and seeing guys there that are like, okay, I see these guys that are good at 15. I remember them when they're 17, 18. Like, oh, that guy was great there. I was like, well, that was a few years ago. A lot could change. There's one guy I knew really well who got into scouting, who back in, can't remember what year, he watched this guy at the OHL Cup who everyone was going all crazy about, but he made 2 really bad defensive plays. And he's like, this guy doesn't have what it takes to be at the next level. That player is Connor McDavid. So he's turned out okay. So, you know, you got to be able to overlook everything. And every time you see it, you got to look at it with fresh eyes.
Yeah. And it's one mistake. Like he makes 50 really good plays. I don't care if he makes one mistake. Like he's making a lot of plays. Kyle wants to know, what's your thoughts on Fabian Lysell in Boston? Do you think he's getting close to NHL ready?
See, I was really hoping he would take a big step forward, and he did take a nice step forward with Providence. But this is a guy I was a big believer in, kind of in his junior, his draft year, because you see that skill. Is he able to put that together every single night? So consistency is still a question. You know, the fact that he hasn't really been part of that team, I'm not sure what their plans are. But I think with the Bruins, they got one of the worst pipelines. With Lysell, we're not talking about a super high prospect, but if he becomes a second line player, that'd be awesome. If he becomes a not depth, but if he becomes a secondary scorer on that third line, that's right now what I'm looking at is saying that's a good spot for him.
I wanted to ask you about, you know, like you scout the Western League, you scout the OHL, you scout the Quebec Major Junior League. Every league has different attributes in how they play. Have you like, is it when you scout a league and, you know, you talk about, hey, maybe I really like a guy, or it's like, well, you know, because I publicly read a lot of people like, man, I don't really like the Quebec League because it's not great defensively. And I'm like, okay, but what about, can you make plays? You know, can you get back to pucks quick? Like there's so much more to just well, it's not great defensively. So do you notice a significant difference from the Q to the Ontario League to the Western League when it comes to just evaluating players, not the style of play?
So there used to be a reputation of like the Western League being this big physical league, but then you're seeing all the skill that's come out the last couple of years. And now that's kind of changing. And, you know, the big push on having all the development schools and everything like that, building these skill players. Then you look at the OHL where there's been a bigger push for bigger defensemen out there. And then there's also the playmaking defensemen like Matthew Schaefer for this year, Brant Clark in the past. The Quebec League has always kind of had this thing of a ton of skill players, but not a lot of strong physical players, where a guy putting up 55 points in a rookie season in the QMJHL kind of gets overlooked and said, oh, whatever, because not great goaltending in that league, you know, not a very physical league. These guys are not having to worry about their heads. This year, I will say for the Quebec League, probably the best representation in the first round that we're going to see in a very long time. Because last year
in the 2025,
2025, I had a couple scouts that told me like they didn't even bother scouting the Q this past year because there were almost no players worth even looking at. They're completely different situation this year.
Stephen Ellis joins us. Going back to this year's draft, it's obviously just 6 weeks ago. Celebrini, of course, goes 1. Then Chicago went with the defenseman. The Seneke pick, everybody saw his reaction, right? They caught it on camera and everything, you know, which is fine. He was a guy who I'd read you were pretty high in him, very much so. And we talk about like second half leaders, right? Because I think some people, you know, nowadays people are putting a list out 2 years in advance and they want to stay with the same guys. What was it about Seneke that, because I'm pretty sure you actually had him pegged to go 3rd overall, if I'm not mistaken.
It became kind of clear when the rumors were going around that they were not going to take Demidov and they were not taking the defenseman. And it's like, well, they leave a couple different options. And I didn't feel like they were going to take another centerman, given who they had on their team. So it didn't seem like it was going to be Lidstrom. With Seneca, the thing about him is, again, looking at a guy who October and then watching him in November and then watching him December, you saw 3 completely different players. This is a guy who kept growing physically, getting stronger, learning how to do that, but playing at a good pace. And one thing was when Cal Ritchie, who's one of the best prospects in hockey, Colorado Avalanche prospect, when he was injured, Seneca had to go out there and take like just take a bigger role with the team. And he started to just look so good. And I would say even for most of the year, I was much lower on him than a lot of people, because I'm like, okay, great. He's showing that what he's able to do here on this team, but now he's got Richie. He's got someone to work with. Can he do it all on his own? And then you watch in the playoffs, like, oh no, he was the guy driving those plays. Like Oshawa probably doesn't go to the finals without the way he played. And then when he got hurt, missed the final, they get swept in 4 games. To be fair, that was an unbelievable London Knights team.
Yes.
But I do think that they're banking on the upside there. And that's what the thing for me, always bank on upside. And he's got so much of it because he continues to grow, but he continues to get better at the same time.
So he went third, then Lidstrom. And I remember the first time I saw Lidstrom, literally within 3 minutes of, I was at an Oil Kings game. It was early in the season. And I'm like, who's that kid? And I look it up and I'm like, well, I don't remember him being drafted because he was so big. I just assumed and then I'm like, this guy's draft eligible. Are you joking? And he was a man amongst boys. Now, unfortunately, got injured because he was on a goal game pace. Like he was lighting it up. Big body. Where do you come out on Lidstrom? And like big guys, to me, sometimes I find teams want to rush them because, well, he's physically capable of doing it. I'm like, that's the worst thing. Let him stay in junior. Like he's like, I don't know why I'm just leery of Columbus rushing Lidstrom.
Which is funny because you look at Columbus this past year and I have no idea what they were doing with their development team. Yeah. Hey, Juracek, you're looking good. We're sending it back to Cleveland. I think with him, because of so much missed time, they're going to be forced to kind of give him this long runway. And he did not look like himself in the WHL playoffs. And I don't believe he took part in the World Junior Summer Showcase as he kind of just kept resting there. But, a back injury is a serious thing to deal with. But from everything that it sounds like, he and his representation went to all the teams and said, like, hey, he's good to go. He's ready to go. Let's see what he's able to do this year. I think he's going to go out there and he's got so much to prove to people. Say, like, this was the right pick. For guys that get injured, like Aaron Kiviariu was a player that a lot of people thought was going to go top 3, top 5 in the draft. Missed most of the season. He falls to like the 4th or 5th round. With Lindstrom, he didn't fall. And I think a lot of that is because of the size and that physical strength and how he controls the play. And, he said that 2 players he looks up to are Rupi Hintz on Dallas and Nathan McKinnon on Colorado. And they, these are strong forwards that can command a lot of attention out there. And you watch him play and he does just that. And I also don't mind guys who are big, got that skill, but also like to go out there and hurt opponents, guys who want to go and throw their body, and he does that. So he's as close to a big package a real package as you can get, but at the same time, don't rush him. He's overcoming a pretty serious injury here.
Yeah. Now, the Montreal Canadiens at number 5, because I'd asked you before we started, what was your favorite pick? And without hesitation, you were like Demidov. What is it about Ivan Demidov that has you so excited?
The one thing that scouts kind of use to describe him is the term hero, a guy that's able to just get the puck on his stick and take over and do whatever it takes to win. And I know a lot of people were saying like, oh, he played in the Russian Junior League this year, like put up a ton of points. Yeah, he put up like pretty much one of the most productive seasons we've ever seen from a Russian junior player. And that's beating out Kaprizov, beating out players like that. He didn't play in the KHL, sure, but if he's playing the KHL, he's probably playing, 2 to 5 minutes a game.
And none of these other guys were playing pro hockey.
Exactly. It's like, there are European guys, like there were a couple of Russian-born players that were in the KHL this year, but did not get the opportunities or the ice time to prove what Demidov did. Just so much pure skill. A guy that, it seems like his teammates really like. I think is going to have a very good year in the KHL with Ska St. Petersburg, especially now that, with Michkov not there anymore, he's kind of got this clear path forward to play more. If he doesn't play there, maybe he gets loaned out to Sochi, kind of like with Michkov, and he goes out there and is a game changer. So just so much pure skill, a guy that every night you can count on a highlight reel play, but not in the same way over time. Like he's so dynamic, finds different ways to create goals. Players like that will move forward and look good.
Stephen Ellis joins us from dailyfaceoff.com. He is in town for the Helenka Gretzky tournament that will wrap up here in the next few days. Young Iginla goes number 6 to Utah, and here's another guy who just his progress here in this last season was monumental. Obviously, everybody knows the genetics and stuff like that. The game's different now. He's not going to fight like his dad fought, right? Like that's not his element, but. What did you make of this pick for Utah, Seattle?
Well, first off, I saw Joe again also play a few weeks ago. He was in Oakville, where I live, and I got to see him play at the U17 camp and started off slow, but near the end, one of the best players out there. So another Iginla is coming. But when it comes to with Tej, it's funny. You watch him in his draft plus 1 year. The 1 year he played, I believe it was with Seattle, and he just didn't do a whole lot of anything. He had like 14 points, and he switched to the wing in Kelowna to get more ice time, and it worked out so well. Because he was playing a key part, didn't have to worry about the two-way responsibility. It was more play your own game. And that game was working his butt off, putting pucks in the net. He had close to 50.
Like 47 goals for a 17-year-old man.
It's huge. That's on a team that wasn't, offensively gifted by any means. He wasn't just like leeching off of all these great guys. Like, he had to go out there and create that. And then watching him at the U18s was the first time I saw him in person. And he wasn't that primary play driver. He wasn't going out there to score goals, but he was blocking shots, playing the penalty kill, grinding it out, like working as hard as anybody on the ice. And that's the type of mentality you look for in a player. Yeah, a lot of players can score goals, but can they go out there and grind away, hit guys, and be a nuisance to the other teams? That's what he does so well.
Steve, you spend all this time watching these guys leading up to the draft. Do you spend as much time watching like the next? I guess it's easy, especially if they stay in junior, because you're still watching the junior leagues. But what about when guys, now they go to the American League? Like, do you follow them, get to kind of see their progress? And if so, I'm curious about a guy who, when he was drafted, people are like, okay, he's a little bit of a project. He's long-term. Max Wayner for the Edmonton Oilers, and where he's come from his draft year, like just an absolute raw player who, had never really, he had never played spring hockey, which is another great example of maybe you don't need to, but he hadn't done a ton of camps. He was just like, he was an athlete. Right. And now like he was kind of even raw. And I remember talking to, he's like, yeah, like he's a powerful skater, but he wasn't a great skater. And he still goes, I don't know how to use my edges properly yet. Right. And he's like, I can figure it out. What do you make of a guy like that? And when he was drafted, did you think he was going to progress at the level he had?
No, not at all. And I think, with you're having to make judgments about these guys when they're 17 years old.
It's hard.
So it's very difficult. And you look at someone like Seneca, where guy in January is not the same guy that got drafted. Like, completely two different people. You don't even recognize it because of the way he evolved as a player. And with in this case here, it's like, you want to look for guys who are continuing to grow mentally and to understand the game. Players that have good hockey IQ, that understand how to adapt, how to get better, and what they need to do, and with the right coaching attached to that, are going to continue to find ways to improve. And I think, there's still it's one thing to go out there and be a good junior player, but then going to be able to do that in the AHL, the NHL, things like that. Like, these guys aren't going to give you the opportunities, and being adaptable, finding new ways to get creative or to be a better defensively. Like, guys who are going to be better defensively, if you're a forward or if you're a defenseman, obviously you need to be.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good defensemen who are not actually good at defending. But then you look at forwards who could be good in that back check. You're looking for those guys who will bring more elements to the game, like I was saying earlier. And I think in this case, you're seeing someone who's become more well-rounded, and that's what you need. So, and the physical maturity, the mental maturity, like that all matters.
Well, the mental maturity is such a hard one to project on players because, most of these young players, not all, but most of them have been the best or top three players on their team for the last 5 years leading up to their draft. Right. And necessarily maybe the odd injury here or there, but a lot of them haven't had much at real adversity, like getting cut from a team. Maybe some will get cut from the World Juniors here or there, but they haven't had to deal with it. But you get to the pros now, and man, like there might as well be a big sticker, adversity lives here. And that's for the 90% of the players, right? Have you learned it all to see, here's a guy who I think might be better suited to handle adversity? Can you scout that?
You look for guys who, that there are still big markets in the CHL. There's big markets in college, players that don't seem to get frazzled playing in there and can look good in the, players that are clutch. That's a term that I hate because you can't really measure clutch, but guys who go out there and show up in those big moments. Those are the guys who you can just tell, though, that are just another animal when the games matter, and players like that. And, Connor McDavid obviously probably did not have to deal with much adversity growing up, other than, an Oilers team that just wasn't good for many years. But throughout his whole hockey career, he's basically had no adversity.
Other than maybe people being jealous. That's probably
like saying like, hey, like I wish I had a heated driveway too. But when it comes to just the guys, the players that I really appreciate the most are the guys. Teddy Stegon, the Nashville Predators, just got drafted. One of my favorite players in this draft, not going to be a huge point producer, but he plays every role. He's a guy who was a first liner on the U.S. national team development program, but plays like he's a fourth line grinder needing to fight for his career. Guys who've got that work ethic are going to find ways, because coaches like that. Coaches want players that are going to willing to do whatever it takes, no matter what. They don't have an ego, but they've got the ability to handle pressure and play like their career depends on it. It means more for those guys to be able to do well, and coaches notice that.
Steve, I'm going to bug you for one more segment because the Oilers made a big trade this offseason, and many people are curious about Matt Savoy. I'm going to get your thoughts on him, and now that he's a member of the Oilers organization, next on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
What's cracking at Cattail Crossing? Every Friday after 4 p.m., it's 9 and Dine Fridays. Includes golf for two with a power cart at Cattail Crossing and a $50 food voucher at Out of Bounds Restaurant. Only $119.99. Tea times can be booked at cattailcrossing.ca.
I'm Colin Livingston, president of Cantork. Since 2016, we've been at the forefront of hydraulic torque wrenches in Canada. I'm delighted to share our latest venture, in-house production for quicker turnaround, superior quality, and heightened versatility. Experience excellence at cantork.com.
Rule number 62, never miss a free pancake breakfast. It's unheard of and frankly, a little upsetting. Summer in Alberta has its own set of rules. And if you're looking to add a little extra fun, Play Alberta has it all. Use promo code SUMMER to snag a $50 casino bonus for casino, instants, and live dealer with your next deposit. Get ready for promotions throughout the summer to help you make the most of those sunny Alberta days, because we all know they don't last long enough. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
Be melon jolly, not melancholy. Summer is ripe for fun, and some Booster Juice bestsellers are back in season. Watermelon smoothies, including the refreshing Watermelon Wave, a berry burst of strawberries, raspberries, pomegranate, and vanilla frozen yogurt. And fan favorites, Watermelon Explosion, a refreshing burst of bananas, mangoes, and pineapple, both made with watermelon sorbet and probiotic yogurt. All of the watermelon, none of the seeds. Visit a Booster Juice near you today, or download the Booster Rewards app.
The Brick is celebrating its 53rd birthday with fantastic deals in every department. Take up to 25% off dining and bedroom furniture and up to 40% off mattresses. And buy more, save more. Up to $400 off select major appliances. And don't forget about back-to-class favorites like desks starting at $74.95. Small appliances starting at $99 and mattresses at just $169. Some exclusions apply. See in-store for details. The Brick, saving you more.
Move Water is your one-stop shop for all things water. From freshwater to wastewater, we've got the pumps and solutions to keep your water moving where it matters most.
Move Water, your water solution experts.
Visit movewater.ca today.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
You wanted local sports on weekends. Saturday mornings at 9, check out the Saturday Sports Setup, where we'll tee up what's happening on the weekend sports scene. Tune in Saturday morning at 9 on Sports 1440.
Always love it when, you know what, you get a guest who's got lots of great information and insight and agree to stick around. He's going to tour around West Edmonton Mall. You doing some shopping after, Stevie? What are you looking for?
Is there an Oilers store down here by chance?
Not an Oilers store. The only Oilers store is technically right across from the rink. But yes, there is. There's a few. There's some hat stores. There's a few. I don't know. Is it still Jersey City? Yeah, there's a few here. There's Sport Check, although I'm not sure if that qualifies.
I have an 80 jersey collection, and of them, I think I have 7 or 8 Oilers jerseys. I was just curious if they had any Ryan McLeod jerseys on sale.
Oh, you know what? That's actually really good. At the Order, you should go to the Order store right across from the rink.
Yep,
like it's right there. It would probably be on a that in a day harnais. You could get those at probably at a pretty good bargain price right now, potentially.
Yeah, well, I saw the Carter Savoy. Or no, it was Matt Savoy jerseys they were selling.
Yeah, the 22.
That was quick. That was quick.
Number 22. So now, speaking of Matty Savoy, now he was the 9th overall pick to Buffalo. Give me your initial reaction when you heard the trade.
Shocked, like everyone. I think you look at that and say, like, okay, well, that's a very high quality prospect traded for, a guy who's probably going to be more of a depth player on the Sabres. But you look at that and it makes sense. The Sabres need to start making moves forward here. They got to eventually make the playoffs here. And you get a guy who's ready to contribute now. And I don't think Savoy was ready to do that with the Buffalo organization, because with them, the Sabres have a very good prospect pool. They have other guys that are
Benson. They got so many that are similar style players.
There's Yuri Kulik, Isaac Rosine, like these guys that have been around for a few years longer that are also pushing for that next next step. So there was going to be a lot of competition. So someone had to move. They get a piece. Like I thought they could have got more value, but they get a guy who's going to help the team.
You thought Buffalo could have got more value?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that's fair. Right, like Ryan McLeod, and there's nothing wrong with the guy if you say, "Hey, this guy's like Ryan McLeod's speed; he'll be in the league for a decade."
Yeah,
right. He was never a scorer in junior. I don't expect him to be a scorer in the NHL. I guess anything's possible. Leon Draisaitl was never a huge goal scorer, but he scored 50 goals suddenly 3 times. Like it, you know what? So there can be some changes, but he was an elite player. So I think elite guys maybe have a better chance to do it. There's not many like Ryan McLeod is like. I don't think he never scored 30 goals in junior. So it's hard to think that he's going to suddenly be even a 20-goal scorer in the NHL, right? But he can be a very solid third-line player, transport the puck, kill penalties, do a lot of things. He's not going to be physical. And so once you accept that, it's probably easier. But going back to Savoy, so now he comes to Edmonton. And I believe for me, now, granted, I'm a guy who's all about more development is never hurting guys. I don't buy into this. Oh, if he goes back to junior, there's nothing for him to play for. I'm like, what are you talking about? Most of these guys who go back to junior as offensive guys, they can work on their defensive game. There's always things to work on. Savoy, now he did play 6 American League games last year and actually did quite well in those games. What do you make of such is that just an adrenaline thing, or does that give you some insight to think, hey, this is a guy, give him another 30, 40 games in the AHL, then maybe he's NHL ready.
So when he took that AHL thing, that was right off of his shoulder injury from the Buffalo prospect tournament.
Yeah.
And so I think he was kind of just running off this adrenaline of like, I'm back. I got to prove something and I've got this good opportunity. And he was playing with some pretty good players too. Like that's the thing. Like the Rochester has some skill guys he could work with. I think AHL has got to be the plan here for him because he's got to be physically stronger. Like I remember the big argument before he went to the WHL was that maybe he should go the college route and he can go out there, spend a couple of years, probably would have gone to the USHL full time. And then maybe he would have gone and, gotten stronger for a couple of years in college, had that opportunity to really grow. And, that's what he would have needed, but that didn't happen. And I think with him going to play next year in Bakersfield, like he'll have an opportunity to be like the guy to go out there and really be important for that team, play some good veteran presence, but he's got to learn to be more physical. You mentioned like about guys who dominate junior, like, is there a reason to go back? In a lot of cases, yes, there's elements of the defensive side, but a lot of it also, you can get caught trying to do too much because, you're this good. You could be, can get lazy. You can try to get too fancy and not use your teammates. I think with him, we didn't necessarily see that, but we need to see a guy who's able to take over as consistently as we know he can. Because he was a guy that heading into his draft year, top 3 prospect.
Yeah. So when you see guys, because you've talked about this a lot, 17 to 20, lots can change for lots of different players. And when you look at Matty Savoy and what you've seen from him, was banged up. He went to Moose Jaw. Obviously, they won the Western League. He was a vital part of that team, no question. He goes to the American League, and he's clearly an offensive guy. There's no doubt about it. You know what? They're going to play him as a center, but I think when I look at the Oilers depth chart, if he's playing in the NHL, he's probably a winger.
Yeah, player. You don't find a lot of guys like his lack of size going out there and being a center because you want guys who are stronger, who can win those faceoffs and not worry about the physical element of him. So I think you can, if you put him in a spot where you let him go have free reign on the wing with a guy who can get him the puck, like he's going to make things happen. So I'm still very high on him. Like I know a lot of people have kind of soured on him a little bit, but I think, if you move him to the wing, which makes sense, he's going to put up a ton of points in the NHL.
When you talk to other people, why are people souring on him? What's their concern?
Not physically strong. He's dealt with a few injuries in the past, but he's kind of had to. He can get lazy. That's realistically, and I think part of it is like, in the WHL, like he always played on good teams, always surrounded by good players, whether it be with Winnipeg or if it was with, I believe it was Moose Jaw where he finished his career. Like he was always surrounded by just so much talent, and he didn't necessarily need to be this fully responsible player at both ends. That's something more of a center you really want from. But if he even moves to the wing, I want a guy who's more aggressive in his own zone and is willing to kind of throw the body, because right now he kind of shies away from contact.
And, because that's not really his game per se, right? Like he's more of a cerebral player for sure. He's highly gifted offensively. And I believe he's better suited to spend the full year in the American League. Now, if there are some injuries, that obviously changes things for Edmonton. But, where do you come out on young guys and the need to develop in the American League?
I think it's such a valuable thing that gets overlooked. And, you'll get a lot of guys who go to junior and it's like their agents might think that these guys can go right to the NHL right away. Like there's not a lot of benefit in going straight to the NHL right away. You're not getting the ice time, and playing time matters so much. Like I'd rather have like Savoy. Could he play in the NHL this year? Yeah, I think he probably could. Should he? Not at all, because he can go out there, play 16, 17 minutes a night in the AHL, get that ice time, learn to play against bigger, stronger guys. That's where he should be. I do fully expect we're going to see him probably play close to 8-10 games in the NHL, whether it be at the start of the year, kind of just see how he does out of training camp, or if it is for injury call-offs. So I do expect him to play NHL games, but he should be in the AHL pretty much otherwise.
I want to get your thoughts on some of the other orders picks before I let you go. They went with the goaltender Emil Vinny, second over with their second pick. 64th overall. And I talked to some goalie guys. They're pretty high on him just because they love how he battles and he's competitive as a goalie. As a scout, where do you come out on evaluating goalies? How hard is it?
It's a crapshoot, to be fully honest. Like looking at this year's draft, the two top goalies, one's 5'11", one's 6'4". And, you want the guy with the size, but he might not be the more skilled of the two goalies. So you're trying to judge a bunch of things. When it comes to Vinny, a lot of people I talked to had him as the best goalie in the draft, and maybe the one with the best shot at being an NHL starting goalie. I'm not convinced any goalie in this year's draft will be a starting goalie, but I do think that he's going to be an NHL goaltender. I think he'll make it. And the way he battles is good. He covers the net really well, very athletic. I think for me, a lot of it comes down to his game-to-game consistency. I've seen some issues where some games where he was the reason they won the game, and other times where he was the reason they lost the game. So we're still looking for that. But in terms of just the way he commands himself, very good head on his shoulders, doesn't seem to worry about pressure. I think there's a good future there.
And I think it's important to point out, just because you don't project someone as a starting goaltender doesn't mean they don't think they can be really, really good. Because so if a guy's not projected as a top pair defenseman, but he's a third pair defenseman, does anybody say he's bad? The difference is there's only two goalies.
Yeah.
So you know what? Not being a starter is I don't think the end of the world if you think he's an NHL goalie. What about Connor Clattenburg? I don't know much about the Flint Firebird.
This guy wants to hit everybody like on the ice at all times. And I watched him at that Buffalo prospect tournament for Ottawa, and it's like he didn't play a lot, but when he was out there, he was trying to put someone through the glass. I think he dropped the gloves a few times. Like this is a guy who's a tough customer. And I don't think he's an NHL player, but he's a guy that at the very least is going to bring a lot of fans in for the preseason and for the AHL, because he wants to prove himself every single time he hits the ice. But
yeah, like he's a 5th round player, and so he's 6'4", he's 200 pounds, and the organization looks and says, okay, well, what do we lack? They don't really have, and there's not many guys like him, to be honest. So you're looking at the 5th round, your philosophy, I think it alters things a little bit. You can take a few more big swings in the later rounds on players than you would necessarily in the second. Like in the second round, you're going to go on we've done all our analysis. We think this guy's the best. You get to the 5th round. Well, geez, maybe this is a little small, but he's ultra talented. Maybe one year you might try him. Case like this, here's a guy who's an absolute banger. We don't really have any of those. Maybe it'll pan out. Everybody else around him has a deficiency. Otherwise, they wouldn't be dropping at that stage of their career to the 5th round. When you do your rankings and stuff, how does it change the later it goes in your rankings for players?
Well, you're looking like everyone's going to have a flaw, basically. The first overall pick might not have a ton of flaws, but most pretty much every player is going to have some flaws, and you just kind of have to balance those ones out and see what, like, again, you kind of mentioned, like, you don't have to, you could be project as a third pairing defenseman. If you become that and you become an NHL player, good.
Yeah.
That's you're trying to turn these guys into NHL players. And I think, for a lot of these cases for goalies, it's, I think every team should draft at least one goalie every single draft.
Really?
Because goalies are so hard to develop. You might as well have as many as possible to hope one hits, right?
Yeah, fair.
A lot of teams do that, like Philadelphia or Florida specifically drafts at least one goalie a year. And teams that do that, eventually one is going to work out. So, looking for a bigger goalie in the later rounds who might not have played as much, maybe next year he plays a lot. He looks good. That can happen. Maybe you find a guy who's a smaller player. Jonas Saarinen of Tampa Bay, one of my favorite players for the Finnish national team the last couple of years at all these levels, puts up a ton of points, but he's 5'9" and he's a center, and that's kind of going against him. But I think he's got a ton of skill. He was the top scorer of this World Junior Summer Showcase. They took him in the 5th round. So you're looking for where that upside is, whether that be the size, whether it be a lack of size, but that they got the speed, they've got the grit. You're just trying to find that one element that other players of that range don't have.
Stephen Ellis from dailyfaceoff.com joins us here on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. You had mentioned earlier about some teams are not having the best. I think it was Boston. So which team right now's pipeline do you like the best from Paul?
See, it's easy to say the San Jose Sharks because Matt Celebrini, Will Smith, all that. I think one Canadian team that looks really good is the Montreal Canadiens. Mentioned Ivan Demidov, Lane Hudson, David Reinbacher, Logan Mailloux, Jacob Fowler. They got depth at every single position. So those ones are the ones for sure you look at them and say, so much talent. But the Sharks, you're going to get your two top 5 prospects pretty much ready to go immediately this season and be your number 1 and number 2 centerman. Smith could play the wing, but if they don't, that's your number 1-2 duo for next 15 years. That's huge. The one thing they're lacking though is a goaltender. I don't think they have a single goalie in the system that it's worth even remembering.
No, they don't.
So
not at all.
But I think adding Sam Dickinson this year was a big one. Chicago's got a good one. Columbus has got a good one. And you look at these teams, and these are the ones that finish in the bottom every year. Eventually, they got to start turning those guys into talent. But I think there's a lot to like there.
Stephen, great stuff, man. I really appreciate you coming in. Now, you mentioned you have you're a jersey collector. Yeah. You said you had 7 of the Oilers, like 80s jerseys.
No, like recent jerseys.
Recent jerseys. So I'm assuming you have McDavid.
I do. I got that for $20 at a Winners in Toronto. I think they priced it wrong because it was an Adidas one. My favorite one might be my Kailer Yamamoto one or my Patrick Maroon one.
Oh yeah, well Yamamoto. Well, that one probably fits you perfect.
You know what? I for some reason I had. Well, my favorite obscure jersey I have is Andre DeVoe game worn Atlanta Thrashers jersey from his one preseason game with the team.
How did you get that? Like, is that you find that in your scouting patterns? Every city you go in, do you go to like thrift stores to see random?
Legitimately, I do. But this one I found off of some auction website online, and I'm like, it was $80. I have a Team Greece jersey. I got an HC Davos Spengler Cup jersey. That's my personal favorite. Rito von Arx, my all-time favorite player. That isn't Cristobal Huet, I guess. But my favorite players of all time are Rito von Arx, who played like 19 games in the NHL, Guillaume Latendresse, and Cristobal Huet.
Why?
Huet was cool because at that time I didn't realize goalies would come from France. I thought that was cool.
Okay. So you're as a young kid.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Latendresse, it was because I thought his name was cool. Yeah, and Von Arx because of all things, NHL 06, the video game, there was a move where you could like flick the puck in the air and bat it out of the air. He was the only player on a European team that could do it. So I became a big fan. I even told him the story in person, and he took a picture.
Are you a big gamer?
Mostly NHL.
You don't have time anymore.
NHL video game probably, and then like online sim racing. I actually do like 24-hour online races and stuff.
Yeah, because you're a huge like motorhead. You were like, hey man, where's Livingston? And he was on a little bit earlier because he's out in Trois-Rivières. You love that race.
I love that. I'm gonna miss it flying home this year. But that's one that I've been there so many times.
What's great? Like any of our race heads, why should they go to this race?
So they basically shut this. Like Trois-Rivières is not big, but it's like by the water. They shut the whole city down basically for this race, and it's like they say close to 50,000-60,000 people show up for the weekend. It's great racing. Like I used to cover the NASCAR Canadian Series. It's the their biggest race of the year. The drivers are just, it means so much to them. It's one of the biggest paychecks too. And there's a few guys locally there that the crowd cheers for. So when you see that crowd, it's like, I've been to Daytona 500, the biggest race in NASCAR. I'd say Trois-Rivières, the atmosphere might be better.
Really?
Yeah. So Tagliani's going to be racing this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He's part-time now. So every race he goes, he's trying to win.
Oh, yeah. No, and Colin's spotting for him. So they'll be all fired up. Have you been to an F1 race?
No, I you know what? F1 of all forms of racing is probably my least favorite.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Indy?
Toronto Indy millions of times. But 8,500, not yet. 1 year.
So is that on your bucket list?
100%. My dad and I, we plan to go to the Daytona 500 in 2026. I want to go to the 24 hours of Daytona and the 24 hours of Le Mans in the Indy 500. That make me happy.
Now, what about, is there one hockey rink that you haven't been that you need to go to?
Davos is arena.
You haven't been there? I thought for sure
no,
you'd be there.
Spengler Cup. No, because it's always during the World Juniors, so it's always busy time. But the Spengler Cup is one of my favorite events in the world. It's like the atmosphere is incredible.
Yeah.
The hockey is better than the World Juniors. Sorry, people, it's true. But sure, you might not get excited about like Gilbert Brulé going over there, but you'll get really excited when you see like it matters for the players that are there.
Oh God, yeah. No, it's a huge for that community in that area, and over that's a massive tournament.
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. It's like way bigger than the World Juniors for Switzerland. And and the having gone to Switzerland, like the hockey fans there are awesome, and that arena, that atmosphere, nothing's like it.
Steven, great stuff, man. We'll have to have you on here. I really appreciate all the work you do. I love reading your stuff. I learned lots about the different prospects and stuff like that. So keep it up, anybody. We got a lot of texts saying they love it. So dailyfaceoff.com is where you can read them. Of course, you can follow him. Just look up on X or Twitter for Stephen Ellis from Daily Faceoff. Thanks, man. We appreciate it. Good luck searching for the jersey.
I'll send you what I find.
All right, there we go. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back. We got 5 questions more. It's the great Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, and it is the Daily Grand today, where you have a chance to win $1,000 a day for 20 years. That's $7.2 million. Get your tickets at PlayAlberta.ca here on Sports 1440, Orders Nation, YouTube, and Facebook.
The summer road lays ahead. Your potential destinations are endless. Volvo Cars Edmonton gives you choice to match. Right now, lease the 2024 Volvo XC90 from 0% for qualifying loyal customers. Or save $7,000 on all new 2024 XC60 recharge plug-in hybrid models. All demo vehicles come with a free 10-year, 1 million kilometer warranty. No matter what you decide this summer will become, your first choice is Volvo Cars Edmonton. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com, 1205 101 Street Southwest.
Now, all sizes of premium roast coffee at McDonald's have a new low price starting at $1 plus tax for a small. It's great if you love great tasting coffee. $1 small premium roast coffee every single day. Must be McCafe. Plus tax at participating restaurants in Canada. Excludes delivery.
You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need. Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939. We're experts in crafting
Jason Gregor Show on Sports
made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
Bringing every project to life requires the right team. By joining the Japa Machinery Group service or sales teams, you can be part of setting a new industry standard. Celebrating a legacy of excellence with Japa. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
The cheesy burger pizza is back at Papa John's. See what happens when you ask for it? Boom! Finally, it's on the menu again for a limited time. Get all the items in the cheesy burger trio or choose between the large cheesy burger pizza for $18.99, cheesy burger papadilla for $9.99, and bacon cheesy burger papa bites for $8.99. All made with sizzling beef, dilly pickles, ooey gooey cheese, and burger sauce. That's right, burger sauce. Get it before it's gone. Better ingredients, better pizza. Better get you some cheesy burger pizza at Papa John's.
Ellis from Daily Faceoff. I trust me. You want to learn about prospects? That's a guy who actually watches the game. I see some who do a lot of their ranking. They're not in the rinks. They're not watching nearly as many games as him. And he went 5 for 5 predicting the top 5 picks. And by the way, he didn't get. He wasn't getting fed who the picks were. He actually wrote it in the morning, and was quite accurate in why his assessment of why he thought this guy was going there. So it was pretty impressive. He talks to a lot of people and really study. I love it because his rankings are all his own analysis, right? Doesn't mean he's right. Doesn't mean he knows more. It's just a good way to get a good, unbiased opinion of a player because, he doesn't care which team drafts him. It's not what it's about. So always enjoy having Steve on the show. Let's get to 5 questions now, brought to you by The Brick as they celebrate their 53rd birthday through the weekend. So you can get, the present is on you for being a supporter and somebody who purchases The Brick. Well, right now you can get huge savings, 40% off of mattresses. Heck, you can get a mattress starting at $169. Need to sleep better? Maybe you just need a better couch for the Olympics. And get great deals on that right now at The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, Gregor, question number 1. Of course, we got some action in the city with Lincoln Gretzky. Of course, that just Ellis on the show. I want to ask you this. Looking at the 2025 NHL draft prospects, is there one you're most intrigued by, something you're going to be watching out for in the next few months?
It's a good question. It's funny because the one that I'm probably most interested in isn't eligible until the following season, right? But in McKenna, and because I've seen him, right, he's in the backyard, so you're able to watch him a little bit more. But if I'm going for the for next season, ones that I guess because of what he just did at the World Juniors, it's hard to overlook James Hagan. So I would I'm going to say him.
One thing you can't teach, size, Gregor. So I'm going to say Roger McQueen, 6'5", 190, had 50 points last season in 53 games for the Brandon Wheat Kings. So he's going to be someone that I'm going to pay attention to, see what he can do this season. And then, of course, when the Wheat Kings come to town, make sure I get down to watch them and see him because that's a guy who I think has some potential, some upside. And that'll be my pick. Question number 2 for you. Since we talked Colorado Avalanche on the show today, looking at this team, a lot of intrigue. How far do you think they can realistically go next season once we get into the playoffs?
Yeah, well, I think it's hard to say it. Because I got to know who's on the roster. Is Nichushkin back? Is Landeskog back and healthy? Well, if the answer to those questions is yes, then the Avs they're a very formidable team. My concern about the Avs right now is their lack of size on defense. And that, they might have the smallest defense score in the NHL next season. And when you look at how the NHL is going to, if you want to go deep in the playoffs, I don't think that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, I mean, like you say, if healthy, they can go on a run. They've got 2 of the most dynamic players there with Makar and McKinnon. A lot of fun to watch. I'm going to say, all things considered, best possible outcome. I'll say Western Conference Final. I don't know if they've got the legs to get them right to the final once again, but I think they can be still one of the best teams in hockey. Question number 3 for you. Obviously, the United States men's basketball team surviving a little bit of a scare. I wanted to ask you about the men's team, and would they be the least surprising gold medalist at these games if you had to go back at the start of the tournament, and if not, or the Olympic Games, sorry, and if you had to go back and pick a team that you said would be the least surprising to win gold, any event, what would have come out for you?
Yeah, that's probably one. I think the women's basketball team, probably the same thing. I would say the 4x1. Now it's not over yet, but if the United States wins the 4x100, women or men, I'm not surprised either one. So yeah, least surprising. It's a good question. I guess for a team sport, yeah, they'd probably be still the least surprising. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this question.
So I was rooting for Serbia so much.
This question was in doubt for a little while there before they went on a heck of a run in the fourth quarter. I would put them atop the list, maybe
another one I have up there just from, watching the sport the last couple of Olympics. Any Chinese team when it comes to diving, they are so good and they're like robotic. There's never a splash. The things they do are just top level difficulty. So the Chinese diving team is top notch, but the U.S. basketball team, I thought for sure they just run through this tournament. So good on Serbia for making them sweat a little bit. Question number 4, the Chicago White Sox, a heck of a run, losing 21 straight games. They would beat the Athletics to avoid making it 22, and then they lose again last night. Make the change at manager earlier on today. When you look at the worst teams you've ever seen, who tops the list for you?
Yeah, like honestly, Pedro Grifol, like what I saw their quote. They're like, we expect better, we need better. What? Look at the roster you gave this guy. Are you telling me that he is out there sabotaging your players? That might be one of the worst quotes after firing a GM on a terrible team, because they are terrible. Worst team that I recall seeing in my lifetime would have been was it their second year for the San Jose Sharks? They were terrible, right? And the Atlanta Thrashers would give them a real close run for their money. They were pretty brutal. Not enjoyable to watch. It had nothing. It was awful.
I'm going to go with the 08 Lions of Detroit.
They went the perfect season.
Perfect season. Terrible. Makes me happy for their fan base that gets to see what they're doing now with Dan Campbell leading the way. But man, they were absolutely awful. It was fun to watch. We were rooting for the perfect season, but as a fan, that had to be tough. So I'm going with the 2008 Detroit Lions. And my final question for you. Actor Dustin Hoffman turns 87 years old today. He's been in a ton of movies. Do you have a favorite of his, or one you would recommend to people like me that we should definitely check out?
So you don't have any Dustin Hoffman movies that are your favorite? Well, have you seen Rain Man?
No.
Well, then that would be right at the top of my list. He was fantastic. And Rain Man, it's such a very good movie for a lot of different reasons. Probably, maybe even more fitting now because we've seen such an increase in autism. But man, he was outstanding in that movie. So I'm gonna go with Rain Man, no question.
I mean, I will say I've seen movies with him in it.
Well, I would assume so.
Not the classic, but Meet the Fockers.
Oh, buddy.
As Ben Stiller's dad, laid back guy. That would top the list for me just because I haven't seen too many. Those movies are hilarious. But I guess I've seen Dick Tracy, I've seen Hook, I've seen movies with him in it, but I got to get to the classics. So yeah, I think Rain Man's one for sure.
Oh, buddy. Rain Man, Ishtar, if you want to go way back. I didn't love that movie, but that's one. Now, if you want to go way back in this time, Tootsie's probably a movie that you should see involving him. That one is fantastic. He also was in give me 2 seconds. Kramer versus Kramer. That's one, is husband, wife, divorce. Yeah, you'd probably want to watch it. Now I know you're newly married, so maybe no, but it was that was a good movie. I honestly though, I haven't seen it so long. I have no idea would it hold up today. Maybe, but from my recollection, I think it would. So, lots of people are saying Peter Pan, Cons.
Yeah. Hook. I've seen that.
Yeah.
He's Captain Hook. Just looking at Kramer vs. Kramer. $8 million budget, $173 million at the box office.
It's a pretty big win.
That seems like one I got to check out.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, no, that is a big win. I didn't know it was $8 million.
Not bad.
Yeah, good for him. Good for him. So he also did what's the book we had to read in high school with Harry Lohman? Death of a Salesman. Did you have to read that book?
No, never did that one.
Really?
Let
anybody know what are the book requirements in English right now in high school that are still must read? You're not reading. I'm assuming it's not the Chrysalids anymore. Please, for the love of anything holy. That was the worst book of all time for a teenager to read. Oh, the worst. So I'm curious, anybody out there who has a son or daughter who's just graduated from high school last few years, what's the required reading now in high school?
Well, we got Donovan Paulson. I was trying to get a read on if he knows what he's read. I mean, that was like 4 years ago.
What, do they have audiobooks now? Is that what they're doing? Jeez. Yeah, I read that. People are like, oh yeah, what book you read? Well, I listened to it. I'm like, it's not reading then. If you listen to the book, that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But you can't say I read the book if you listened to it. You didn't read it. You listened to the book. There's a difference. Is it a pet peeve of mine? Yes. Yes, it is. But it's very different. So
I would love to do that. Like the classic books, just get the audio version. Because I'm not a reader, but I am a content consumer. So if you just gave me an MP3, I could stream it. I would be down for that for sure.
Now the other movie cons that you should watch is The Graduate. With Mrs.
That's with the Hoff?
No. Yeah, not the Hoff, Dustin Hoffman.
That's what I call it.
But it's with Anne Bancroft. She was Mrs. Robinson. And he's a younger guy. He's kind of getting seduced by her. It's you might like that movie.
What's her name?
Anne Bancroft. Now this came out in 50 years ago. But Anne Bancroft was Smoke Show. Yes.
The Graduate. Okay.
Yes. So check it out. Hey guys, I read Death of a Salesman in grade 12. I graduated in 2009 from Ty the Ump. All right, yeah, see, exactly. It's a while after me, yeah. Death of a Salesman. You didn't read that. Clance, you graduated after. I mean, before 2000.
Before 05, yeah.
Yeah, and you didn't have to read Death of a Salesman. What kind of lame high school did you go to? Did you guys even have books at that school?
Yeah, I mean, Ross Shepard.
Do you even remember one book you read in high school?
No.
So maybe it was required reading, but Connor Halley didn't read it?
Didn't need to. No, honestly, you're right. I don't remember. I had a great, English 10-1 teacher. Didn't love my teachers after the fact, but I don't remember what books we were the mandatory reads.
Oh, geez. Somebody out there, text in. I'm curious. And any time from 2020 until now, what are the books of choice? Hey, fellas. Struddy would have had Hoffman in Godfather 4. Oh, tomato soup. Are you kidding? He killed it in Godfather 4. He got robbed. He should have won Best Actor. No question. Godfather 4. Electric movie, according to Struddy. Electric. So, there you go. Let's get to a lot of people are agreeing, Cons, with the Graduate. You might want to check it out.
I'll take a look.
Yeah. Let's get to Sports 1440 update brought to you by Rhoda Exclusive. Now, here's an opportunity. You want to drive a Lamborghini, a Ferrari, Aston Martin. You can have luxurious vacation properties, all part of your membership. Maybe you don't want to own a Ferrari, but you want to drive one. Go to RhodaExclusive.com today.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
Montreal has won another gold medal for Canada at the Paris Games in Olympic weightlifting, this time silver in the women's 59-kilogram category. Toronto won gold in Tokyo in the 64 kg. That to move down after her class was removed from the games. Canada's Skylar Park also won bronze today at the women's taekwondo, and Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humanaparty advancing to the gold medal match in beach volleyball after they defeated Switzerland in 3 sets. They'll take on Brazil in the gold medal match tomorrow at 2:30. Men's basketball, the United States rallied back to beat Serbia 95-91. They'll now take on France, who defeated Germany earlier today. That'll be Saturday at 1:30. Major League Baseball, the Blue Jays in action. Vlad Guerrero looking to make it 20 straight games with a hit as they take on the Orioles in about 5 minutes' time. One game going on right now. The Reds lead the Marlins 3-0. That's in the bottom of the third. Later tonight, Yankees, Angels, Rays in St. Louis. The Mariners host the Tigers, and the Phillies will take on the Diamondbacks earlier on today. Giants knocked off the Nationals 9-5 in extras. Brewers beaten up on the Braves 16-7. Padres over the Pirates 7-6, and the Rockies followed home to the Mets 9-1. In the CFL, Week 10 kicks off with Ottawa taking on the Saskatchewan Roughriders. That one will get going in about 30 minutes' time. And in the NFL, we got 2 games tonight, Patriots and Panthers, and Lions taking on the Giants. Both those games getting underway shortly. Coming up in hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show, we will be joined by Mark Spector of Rogers Sportsnet, and we'll head down to Arizona, talk little Cardinals with Theo Mackey. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free radio player app and listen wherever you go.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
for comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort in your wallet with no payments or interest for 1 year.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
You deserve comfort. Cool off today with AC from Legacy Heating and Cooling.
You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need: Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939, we're experts in crafting impeccable tailor-made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
Hey, it's Scott from Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. It's our final clear out of classic Ram 1500 trucks, and I do mean final. This is your last chance to get 25% off a brand new Ram truck. We still have some inventory left, but when they're gone, they're really gone. Or get an iconic Jeep Wrangler with up to $7,500 off. 0% financing available on every model. And we have a couple of the rare 500 horsepower 392 Wranglers in stock now. St. Albert and Sherwood Dodge, Edmonton's best rated Ram and Jeep dealers.
The Brick is celebrating its 53rd birthday with fantastic deals in every department. Take up to 25% off dining and bedroom furniture, up to 40% off mattresses, and buy more, save more, up to $400 off select major appliances. Plus, save up to $1,400 on day and night furniture, and don't forget about back-to-class favorites, like desks starting at $74.95, small appliances starting at $99, and mattresses starting at just $169. Some exclusions apply. See in-store for details. The Brick, saving you more.
Sunday afternoon, your Edmonton Elks host the BC Lions for Country Day. Yeehaw! Before the game, there'll be country music and tailgate, a petting zoo for the kids, and cowpokes can ride the mechanical bull to win prizes. Tickets and more at GoElks.com.
I'm Rick Showers from Noble RV. Anything that's exposed to the elements or has moving parts needs regular maintenance. And when you consider an RV, well, it falls into both categories. Lots of moving parts and sitting out all the time, which is why we hire the best RV technicians in Alberta to come work here at our new, bigger store in Leduc.
Noble has giant indoor service space that can hold the biggest RVs in the world.
That's right, Bob. The vast majority of our indoor space at Noble is dedicated to service and repair. You spend the summer in the great outdoors, and we spend the winter doing scheduled maintenance, so you're ready to go next season.
Sounds like a year-round thing, Rick.
That's it exactly, Bob. Our techs are the most highly experienced men and women in the business. We're solving problems and creating solutions every day. Whatever your used RV needs, our service team has seen it before and knows exactly what to do.
And that's Noble.
NobleRV.ca.
Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you. Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube and Facebook. Some of you watching on X, streaming live on the app, or however you're listening, consuming the show. We always appreciate it. Thanks for listening. And more importantly, thanks for supporting all the sponsors who allow us, continue us to be on the show as we're getting geared up for another season. You know what? This offseason's been unreal. The Olympics are on. It's great. You got the NFL right around the corner. There's really no downtime in the sporting calendar this year. It's fantastic. And, you know, this year we'll have something we haven't had in a long time. The Four Nations Cup which will happen in February. Will be a maximum if your team makes it to the final of 4 games. So I don't think it's going to be that taxing on the players who play in it. Ultimately, will teams, you can monitor minutes and different things like that afterwards. But I'll tell you, I know that it doesn't have Russia, and some people are going to say, oh, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, why? So they don't have Russia. Does that mean Sweden, United States, Finland, and Canada aren't going to ice their best teams? They are. Would it be nice if there was more? 100%. Is this better than nothing? 100%. At least for me anyway. So I look forward to it. And I'll be curious. Edmonton Oilers, obviously Connor McDavid's a no-brainer. He's on it. I think Zach Hyman is a no-brainer. He's on it. I think Evan Bouchard is going to get a long look to be, he's in tight though. The right defense for Canada is good. Cale Makar, Pietrangelo, Bouchard, Dobson, Doughty. They got some good D. Real good D. So he'll be in tough, no doubt, to make that team. We'll see how it goes. Should be fun. Let's get to the Spec Report now, brought to you by GS Construction. I learned today, and we might have to find anybody who works at GS Construction. Ask Turan Sandwith, what was the hardest he ever got hit in junior? Did it happen to be in Cows? Because I spoke to the gentleman today who delivered that hit. So the old Sandman had his head down. Well, I'll tell you who doesn't. People at GS Construction. So you can always have fun with the boss at GS Construction. They're hiring. Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction as Mark Spector joins us. Spec, do you remember the books you had to read in high school?
Oh, barely. Barely. Do you?
Death of a Salesman?
Yeah, I read that at one point. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, okay. So, like Chrysalids is probably the worst book I've ever read. I don't think it was around in your time. And you're probably lucky you didn't have to read it. So Romeo, Juliet, Hamlet, of course, read those.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Does it make me a better person today? I'm not sure, but it was good to gain an understanding of what's going on in the literary world a little bit. Why not?
Well, it should help your vocabulary the more you read.
It should. Makes you smarter the more you read. So I'm a writer. You're not going to catch me coming out against reading, pal.
Well, I'm not trying to say it. I'm trying to hear you be like, well, I'm not sure, maybe better. I'm like, maybe you wouldn't be a writer, you jabroni, if you didn't know how to read.
Yeah, well, that's a good point, Jason.
Yeah.
No, I mean, listen, why? What are we getting at? Have you? Is the show been about literature today, or what?
Well, we were talking about it a little bit because we had Stephen Ellison. We were just talking about books, and I just came across like the Chrysalids it's the one book in high school, and I like reading. I still read a lot. I enjoy reading, and the Chrysalids is probably the least favorite book of mine that I've ever read. Like I hated it. You remember how you had to do book reports? That one was just like an absolute. I remember it was just like a slog to get. Like I would have paid anybody money to write me a book report on that book. It was so terrible.
So they have. It must be hard now for teachers the way there are all these ways you can get book reports online and chat GP and all that stuff. Like I wouldn't want to be a teacher today.
Oh God, it'd be hard
reading the book. That was always the thing is, you know what? We used to skim the book and try to write a report. Yeah. That teacher saw you coming a mile away.
Back then, you remember when you could buy the Coles notes of a book, right? You buy.
Oh yeah.
Buy the Coles notes, but it didn't give you enough. Like it gave you enough to maybe get a 60, but you sure couldn't get an 80 or a 90. But not to date ourselves, but I remember you could get the Coles notes. Those are absolute classic. You can go buy them in the bookstore. Like Lord of the Rings was another classic book. I love that book. Like that was a great book to read.
Yeah, I think I read Lord of the Flies.
That's what I meant. Yeah, not Lord of the Rings. Yeah, so Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, that Animal Farm. I remember reading Animal Farm.
Oh yes. Oh God, To Kill a Mockingbird. Woo. That was a great book. So it held up very well. Very well. A few things today. Spec, I don't know if you're like USA basketball got a little bit of a scare by Serbia, but man, the track and field today to me was the story. Just watching the 400-meter hurdles, the women an absolute dominant 50.37 seconds in the 400-meter hurdles, and then the men's. I don't know if you watched the men's, Spec, but it was an absolute barn burner of a race. Canada gets 2 more medals today. Like every day when I think I'm not going to be entertained, I find ways to get more entertained with these Olympics. Like they're not.
Yeah,
They're not getting worse. They're not getting worse.
No, they're not, because every athlete is, every athlete you watch has been training for this thing for 4 years. So, just because you don't know the race or just because you don't know the people, it doesn't mean they're not trying and giving it every ounce of what they got. Like, that's what makes the Olympics, right? Is one event after another, the meaning and the gravity of that event to the participants. It's not game 41 of the regular season out there, right? Like, it means every heat, every semifinal. I watched our girls win their semifinal against Germany. They faced match point in the second set this morning. Or sorry, against who did they play this morning? Anyway, our beach volleyball girls won. Switzerland. They played Switzerland. Sorry, faced match point in the second set. Squeaked through and won the third set. I watched our weightlifter win a silver medal this morning in the 59 kilogram. Those girls are trying to lift almost 300 pounds, for Pete's sakes. It's insane what they're doing out there.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Like the power and the strength involved in that. And like, you have to have such good technique to be able to lift that heavy. It's very impressive. Anybody who gets in the gym and wants to lift some weights, you start moving around weights like that, you know what you're doing. So there's no doubt about it. The other story, we had Steven Ellison, and it was interesting. He's a big believer. He goes, he's still high on Matt Savoy. He goes, some people maybe not so much. He's a scout, watches all these guys a long time, and he's just like, man, gotta have him, and he's got to have a full year in the AHL and really be able to benefit. He did play 6 games in the American League last year and was very good. Maybe a little bit of adrenaline because he was coming off that injury in the Sabres. I think it was rookie camp or whatever that led to him, and then he came back finally and got to play. But where do you come out on Savoy? Do you think he's going to get some game action this year, or is it all dependent on health of the guys at the NHL level?
Yeah, if you have a huge rash of injuries and he's the best guy in the A, sure, he might get a call up. But listen, this is a guy that needs to go spend a full season in the AHL. I think we're past here, here in Edmonton, this notion. I always laugh when I hear guys say, well, send him to the AHL till the end of November or Christmas, and then he'll be ready to come up. There's no clock down there, right? There's no, I'll take a month of the AHL, please. It's not like a dinner menu. You go down there, it's always harder than you think. Guys never play as well down there as you hoped off the start, and you gotta wait for them to master that level of hockey. Like, it is so hard. It is such a step up. So for sure he needs a full season down there. Listen, like I say, if there's a bunch of injuries, you call him up for a couple games, great. When those guys get healthy, he goes back down. Developing players has to include the AHL. This routine, you're going to take it from junior to NHL. It only works when they're first overall pick, and even then they struggle.
Oh God, yeah. I always like to point out to people, Draisaitl was not an NHLer as a teenager. And last I checked, he turned out like a pretty good player. So patience is a virtue for young players like that, for the Edmonton owners. Spec, we had Vincent Desharnais on the program yesterday. A really good interview with Vinny. He's going to shave his head off for charity. And if you want to sponsor him, you can go check out his feed. He actually added a new big prize pack today to that. So you go check it out on his Instagram page. But he talked pretty openly about the playoffs and obviously how gut-wrenching it was, but also how exciting it was and what you learned as a player. And I know he's not with the organization anymore, but you know what? Like, where do you come out on Desharnais? Like, to me, like, he's only played 113 NHL games. Like, he's still kind of like an unfinished molded product, even though he's like a 2016 draft. Like, I won't be surprised in 2 years if people are like, geez, that Vincent Desharnais turned out to be a pretty solid defenseman.
Well, the one quote I'll always remember from Vincent Desharnais was when he said, every team I've ever joined, I came in as the 8th or 9th defenseman. He said that to me before last season at training camp. We all were handing the job to Broberg, the number 6 job in Edmonton. We were all it was Broberg's job to lose. Desharnais was just there in case it didn't go well. And he absolutely claimed that job. And I believe he did he not play 78 regular season games last year or something? Yep. And went into the playoffs as a starting top 6 defenseman. He took the job because he was a better player. So this is you're right. Like, yeah, what is he? That makes him 26.
Well, no, because as he told us yesterday, he goes, I shouldn't be here. It was because he was basically a 21st rounder. That was his third eligible year of draft.
Yeah.
He's 28.
Yeah. So, he's a late bloomer. So that's okay. And every time you think he's not going to do something, he does. I remember when Niemelainen was considered to be the better number 6, big, tall, stay-at-home guy in Bakersfield. Well, Darnay passed him by. And then Broberg was supposed to be better. Darnay passed him by. Darnay played a lot of key minutes. He found a role killing penalties. And I'm with you, man. I mean, I think now he starts as a solid NHL bottom pairing guy. Who knows how much? You said it, 100 and change games. I mean, how good is he going to be at 250 games, Jason?
Yeah,
excellent
honestly.
question. Who knows the answer?
Yeah, like and if all he becomes is a steady number 3 defenseman who's on your first unit penalty kill, you'll take that all day long. You're like, this is great value.
Oh, become Edmondson. How many teams have traded for Eddie at the trade deadline because they want a big, solid, stay-at-home guy that can kill penalties, right? Why can't that be Desharnais?
Yeah, no, very valid point. I'm kind of curious because I see some, and I get, and he even admitted it yesterday. Like, he knows the passion of the Oilers fans, and there's lots of them that really like Desharnais. I think they like the storyline. He always was appreciative of every day in the NHL. That's the one thing I always got from Vinny, right? And and I think he never lost sight of the fact that the NHL, it's awesome to be in here. And he talked about his journaling and how that helped him and all these different things. But the first game that the Oilers play the Canucks, the love affair for Vinny for Oilers fans, like, he'll be the opposite of Cassian. Cassian was hated by a lot of Oilers fans, and he came here and they're like, oh, geez, I kind of like this guy. And Desharnais was very liked by a lot of fans. Now they're gonna be like, God, I kind of hate him because he plays for Vancouver, which I honestly think right now, I think if I asked Oilers fans, Vancouver is a bigger rival than Calgary right now.
Oh, yeah. No question. I mean, a couple things there. I think no one's going to really, truly in their heart hate Vincent Desharnais around here. You might boo him because he's wearing a blue and green jersey, but what's to hate? I mean, come on. He's a great guy. The Oilers developed him. He's an awesome young guy. He went off as a free agent. God bless him. His career's not going to be that long because he started it so late. I don't blame him one bit for taking more money and going off somewhere. So good for him. And on the Canucks, I mean, there's no question. It's because the Flames are no threat, right? The Flames are, I mean, they're getting worse, but they're going to get worse before they get better. They're in a total rebuild here. It's Vancouver. You got to hate Vancouver because they might, they darn near took something from you last year, and they may be the next LA Kings, Jason, the team that you got to get through every spring if you're going to get out of the West.
Yeah, and Oilers would take that because they beat the Kings every year, so they'd be like, "Yeah, sure, no problem, no doubt about it." I think Vancouver wants to hope they aren't the next the LA Kings, because that means all they'll do is lose to do. And you know what though, they might be that way because the Oilers are good, right? Like, there's no question about it. They are very good, and Skinner and Arvidsson give them, I think, more of an outside shooting presence that they haven't had on this team in a while. So that will help them. We had Rick Campbell on the show earlier today, the head coach of the the BC Lions, and he was very open about the not challenges, but just how you have to game plan different against Trey Ford, and you have to be more disciplined defensively. You can't be too passive though, because if you let him stand in the pocket, he's shown he can throw. He was 18 for 22 last week. And I like Rick saying, hey, the league's better when you have better quarterbacks. It's just a fact. They're more exciting. And what's your expectation, Spec, as you move into Trey Ford's first home start of the season, not his career, but first home start of the season? And do you think they build off of last weekend, especially with BC not having Vernon Adams?
Well, I think the biggest difference here is, first of all, we know football, the more recent film they get on a guy, the harder it gets for him. So they got a little film on Trey Ford now. And Rick Campbell, he's one of the best coaches ever. He'll figure a few things out. But the difference here is, and you just said it, there was a time when they would say, we're just going to make Trey Ford beat us with his arm. And, he won some football games, but it wasn't if he couldn't run around, he threw some picks and he wasn't as effective. Certainly for one game, and it's only one game, but 18 for 22 tells me he can beat you with his arm, right? That's the quarterback that can beat you from the pocket if he has to. So now you can't just let him stand in there. Rick's right. You can't give him too much time. He showed against Saskatchewan, he'll beat you. He can throw a long ball, and he's clearly able to check down and find secondary receivers and the things that a young Trey Ford maybe wasn't so good at. So, you know what? If you can beat the other team with your legs, and then you can beat him with your arm, and you can beat him with your head, all of a sudden you sound like a damn good quarterback to me. And let's see how this evolves. But somehow, without playing a lot of games, just watching him against Saskatchewan, it looked like Trey Ford has evolved since last year. And I don't know how he did it from the bench.
Wow. Now, to his credit, he did mention how, Bethel Thompson has taught him some things, being a veteran quarterback, right? Like how to chart your plays better and different things like that. So that helps. And you know what? I said it when they first signed Bethel Thompson, when his contract didn't come out. I was like, oh, that's actually a smart signing to be a backup. Right. And if you would have signed him to be the backup, it would have been perfect. And so now you just ride him in that role as the backup and say, hey, your job now, you're still getting paid, is to really help mentor Trey Ford.
Yep.
And I would like to think that he does that. Trey Ford's talked pretty glowingly about it, and that could be the difference maker, because Trey Ford just has tools that very few quarterbacks in the league have. His ability, he was actually a pretty accurate passer, but you look at like 17 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions last year to this year. Like it's not just a one game. That's 11 games. It's not a crazy number, but it's, hey, 11 starts is 11 starts. When he doesn't start, the team's 0-15. So I'm going to say that that's not bad. And I think Trey Ford here, Spec, because I keep hearing that they're getting closer to this announcement with the ownership group, right? All the T's are almost crossed and the I's are dotted. And I'm a firm believer that if there's something to be said about momentum and timing, and if they win on Sunday, I am trying to expedite and ensure that we get that deal, and so I can announce a deal next week. Just to get, you got momentum going here, you know what? I come out and as the owner in my first press conference say, hey, Trey Ford's our quarterback. Done.
Yeah, I was going to say, at the same press conference, you might announce a 2-year Trey Ford extension too, if you really want to grab the fan base by the throat. So, you know what? I mean, back to Bethel Thompson, I think that's exactly what every young quarterback needs, is a guy to talk, whisper in his ear a little bit when he comes to the bench. Remember, Jarius Jackson knows a thing or two about being a quarterback in the league. But I agree with you. Bethel Thompson's probably his highest value as this, as his contract's running out this year. His highest value is as a quarterback coach for Trey Ford. There's no doubt about that. And, let's see what happens. It's one game in a row, Jay. Let's try not to get too far ahead. But we've been saying it all season long, and we're going to keep saying it. If Trey Ford keeps playing like Trey Ford plays, what CFL team on earth wouldn't want to build an offense around that kind of quarterback? Why are you looking for something better? Oh my goodness, this guy is a classic Canadian football league quarterback, and he's Canadian, which is unbelievable. I don't get why it's taken so long to realize this guy is perhaps, one of the biggest gifts from God this franchise has had in years and years and years.
Yeah. And Spec, before I let you go, another classic book that you had to read probably was Animal Farm by George Orwell.
Animal Farm. I read Animal Farm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's another classic. Love that book. All right, Spec, have a good one. Enjoy the game. Vladdy Guerrero, another double for the Vlad, man. He's up to 20 games, and that double paid very well at playalberta.ca.
There you go, partner.
There you go. Have a good one.
All right, man.
The Spec Report brought to you by GS Construction. We talked about that earlier. It's our pick of the day. Vladdy Guerrero with the double. I like it. Jay's with a great early start tonight. We'll come back and we will continue our NFL previews. A team that I don't know if you can have much expectations for them. So is this the year the quarterback lives up to the hype? We'll find out next on the Gregor Show, presented by playalberta.ca.
Gather around the radio, kiddies, for the best time of day. It's Oodle Noodle time. Listen in this week as your noodle hero battles the barbarous Bobby Burger. Now sing along. You know the word. Oodle Noodle time. Oodle Noodle time. You know what time it is now. Get up and give me your best Oodle Noodle dance. your best time of day is noodle time.
Rule number 41, never challenge a goose in the Bow Valley. They run this town and they know it. Summer in Alberta has its own set of rules. And if you're looking to add a little extra fun, Play Alberta has it all. Use promo code SUMMER to snag a $50 casino bonus for casino, instance, and live dealer with your next deposit. Get ready for promotions throughout the summer to help you make the most of those sunny Alberta days, because we all know they don't last long enough. Bonus terms and conditions apply.
Japa Machinery Group knows that XCMG may not roll off the tongue, but Japa's team will help keep your construction jobs rolling on time and on budget with heavy equipment sales and rentals. Visit japamachinery.com to find out more.
Be melancholy, not melancholy. Summer is ripe for fun, and some Booster Juice bestsellers are back in season. Watermelon smoothies, including the refreshing Watermelon Wave, a berry burst of strawberries, raspberries, pomegranate, and vanilla frozen yogurt, and fan favorites, Watermelon Explosion, a refreshing burst of bananas, mangoes, and pineapple, both made with watermelon sorbet and probiotic yogurt. All of the watermelon, none of the seeds. Visit a Booster Juice near you today or download the Booster Rewards app.
The Junior Prospects Hockey League is entering its third season of gameplay. The JPHL now offers academic and athletic opportunities in the 14U, 15, 17, and 18U age divisions. All JPHL games are broadcast live on Silent Ice TV with a showcase-style game schedule and high level of travel and accommodations for its team, staff, and players. To learn more about why the JPHL is the fastest-growing elite hockey academy stream in Western Canada, visit juniorprospectshockeyleague.com.
The only thing as hot as the weather this summer is a night out at On the Rocks. Every weekend, enjoy live music and top DJs spinning your favorite tracks. The dance floor is the place to be. Celebrating a birthday or stagette? Let OTR take the work out of the planning for you. Book your party online at ontherocksedmonton.com. Join OTR every evening from 4 p.m. for a great atmosphere and good company. There's something for everyone to enjoy. Grab your Good Vibe Drive and head to On the Rocks, corner of Jasper Ave and 118th Street.
Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook, as it's time for our football report brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling. Home to no payments, no interest for 1 year on your AC unit. Stay cool all summer long at legacyheating.ca. As we continue our NFL preview, and today we will stop in Arizona to talk a little Cardinals with Theo Mackey, a beat reporter for the Cards. And Theo, obviously a tough season last year. Thanks for joining us. The big question is Kyler Murray, what's he going to be? It's super early in camp, but what do you think's a realistic expectation for him?
It's a good question. I think the expectation would be to get back to the quarterback that he was in 2021. It was his last, close to a fully healthy season. 2022 at the ACL, he wasn't very good before the ACL. 2023 comes back from the ACL, kind of a mixed bag. If he can get back to that quarterback that he was in 2020, 2021, it does a lot for this offense. And I think there's a lot of optimism that he can get back to that because, who did he have then? It was DeAndre Hopkins. Now the hope is that Marvin Harrison Jr. can kind of fill that role. And, you're not asking him to carry a team with no receivers like he was for the last 2 years.
Yeah. That is, like Marvin Harrison Jr., he's the main guy, although the storylines are all about his jersey and if they can buy it or not right now, which is kind of a crazy story in itself. But, how do you you look at Harrison and I don't care. Rookies, NFL rookies are a little bit different than other rookies. They come in, especially guys who spent multiple years in college and they can have successful seasons. But do the Cardinals have an O-line that's going to give them enough time to find Harrison Jr.?
That's a great question. That's something that we'll learn in preseason. It's one of the things I'm going to be watching for in preseason in the limited amount that we'll see the first team offense. Because it's a huge question. If they can't give him time, he's going to have to do a lot of, check downs to Trey McBride and some of those other guys instead of finding Harrison. Last year, he checked the ball down more than he ever did in his career. Well, why did he do that? Probably the offensive line, by and large. I think it's a group that kind of doesn't have any giant holes. So that's good, right? Like, there's no one you look at and like, okay, that's a star. But on the offensive line, if you can have no holes, you just have a bunch of solid guys, that can oftentimes be enough to get the job done. So it's not going to be a top 5 offensive line, but I think there's an optimism that it will be good enough to give Kyler the protection that he needs to do what we were talking about.
Hey, Connor Halley here for you. Just a question, looking at the backfield here. Obviously, we know James Conner, when he's on his game, not only a great fantasy player, but a pretty good running back. But the team did invest in the position in a 3rd round, I believe, with Trey Benson out of Florida State. How are you expecting the shares or the carries to be shared with these two players going into the season?
Yeah, coming into training camp, I was curious about that myself, and it really does seem like this is James Conner's backfield. We've actually seen Amari DeMarcado, who fantasy players might remember was a hot pickup last year when James Conner went down, didn't really do much. Amari DeMarcado's gotten a lot of praise from the coaching staff. He's been working in with the first team a lot. Trey Benson started to work in with the first team a little bit. For now, it looks like DeMarcado is the main backup. We'll work in on 3rd downs. And then Trey Benson, as the season comes along, maybe he'll have a little bit larger of a role. But, if you're talking fantasy football, I expect James Conner to have a pretty big share of this backfield and kind of do what he did last year when he was one of the best running backs in the league.
Looks like Trey McBride is a guy who's taken steps, obviously learned probably quite a bit from Zach Ertz when he was there. And last season, over 100 targets, had quite a few receptions, didn't quite find the end zone, maybe as much as he would have liked to. Although Marvin Harrison's going to be the number 1 option, do you think Zach Ertz will have a pretty big role? Trey McBride will have a big role in this offense?
I definitely think Trey McBride will have a big role in this offense. I think one of the things that it seems like they're focused on from watching them in training camp is getting more tight ends on the field. They were really good in those spots last year when they had multiple tight ends on the field. I think Trey McBride's going to be on the field a lot. I think he's going to be a really good piece of this offense. Now, if we're talking fantasy football, I do have a little bit of a concern for him just in terms of how much of the share of the receiving work he's going to get. Because you have Marvin Harrison, of course, is going to be the number 1 receiver, something that they didn't have last year, right? When Trey McBride was excelling, they didn't have Marvin Harrison. Michael Wilson, 2nd-year receiver, has looked really good in training camp, gotten a lot of targets from Kyler Murray, a lot of talk about him stepping up in year 2. Greg Dortch is a slot receiver that not many people talk about. Inside this building, there's a lot of optimism for him. So I think Trey McBride will be really good for the Arizona Cardinals. Will he see the same share of the receiving work that he did in the second half of last year? I think that might be kind of tricky just with the amount of receivers that this team had and how improved this receiving group is from a year ago. Michael Wilson, who I just mentioned, he was injured for a lot of the second half of the season when Kyler came back. So it's just a matter of, is he going to be able to have that same target share that he did a year ago? And we'll see as the season gets going.
Theo Mackey joins us. We were talking Arizona Cardinals. Switching over to the defensive side of the ball, they did get another 1st rounder in Darius Robinson, albeit late. Where do you see him fitting in, and how's this defense? Obviously, when your offense isn't on the field that much, it's hard for any defense. But is the defense, because they didn't have great numbers last year, are they improved enough to be serviceable?
That is a great question. I was listening to a podcast yesterday on my way home from the stadium, and they were debating whether the Cardinals are a dark horse. And I was sitting there thinking to myself in the car, I think they're half a dark horse. Can you be half a dark horse? Like an offensive dark horse to be a really good offensive team, but it's hard to see it defensively. If you're talking about them really breaking into that echelon of competing with the best teams in this division, the defense, it's hard to see. The pass rush in particular, BJ Ojulari is a second-round pick last year. He was expected to have a big role, kind of, if you were looking, how is this pass rush going to be good? Well, it was going to be, okay, Ojulari is going to take a big step. He tore his ACL in the first week of training camp.
Right.
So now you're looking at a pass rush with a bunch of veterans. You kind of know what they are. Last year they had 1 sack in the last 6 games. The secondary could be pretty good. I think there's some optimism there because they drafted rookie cornerbacks in the 2nd and 3rd round. Their safeties are good. So the secondary could be pretty good. Up front, it's going to be a battle. And but one reason for optimism is they could be better up against the rush than they were last year. They allowed the most rushing yards in the league. They brought in a bunch of big bodies in the middle. No one, no giant names or anything, but a bunch of big bodies with NFL experience in the middle of that defense, of that defensive line that should make the rush defense a little bit more solid than last year when it was so porous. Darius Robinson, he's looked really good in camp, so he should be a big part of that.
Theo, I know it's super early, but with the changes to the kickoff rule in the NFL, you talk to players or coaches. How much are teams working on this in the preseason and in training camp to ensure that they kind of know what they're doing come the regular season?
Oh, they're working on a lot. Yeah, basically every day of practice, they're doing stuff. One of the things that we talked to the special teams coach earlier this week, and one of the things that he said that was really interesting to me is there's maybe not as much trickery or advantage as people want to think, but the one thing that you can do if you have a really good kicker, because the ball or the play is live when the ball hits the ground. So right. What he was saying that he thinks the advantage is if you have a kicker who can get the ball down before the receiver or before the kick returner is able to get to it. So, you stick it in the corner, you hit a line drive, and it bounces before the kick returner is able to get to it. He thinks that can make a really big difference. So they're working on both sides of that, getting the ball down, and then what do we do if the other team is able to get the ball down on us? I don't think it's going to be kind of as game-changing as maybe is fun to imagine, but I do think we'll see more kick returns. There's been so many touchbacks in recent years, and I think, as a football fan, it's fun to see actual returns, and that I'm looking forward to.
So then, is DJ Dallas a guy you think can be a threat?
Yeah, that's why they brought him in. That's why they gave him a multi-year deal to a guy who hasn't done much as a running back in recent years is to be a returner. I don't know if he'll be one of the top 5 in the league. I don't know if he's kind of that explosive guy, but I think that is his role on this team is to fill that role and to help make it easier for them to do the things that they want to do with these new kickoff rules. There's going to be more returns per game.
Oh, God.
The ball's not sailing out, so you have to have more options. You don't want to put one of your receivers back there 15 times a game for kickoffs and punts, and, he's just getting battered.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So what's your expectation? Is 9-8 realistic for this team?
I think 9-8 would be a really good season. I don't think it's like the absolute ceiling. I think it would be a really, really good season. I think if you could go 9-8, say, okay, the defense is making steps, 2025, now we can, because right now they have the most cap space next offseason. So if they go 9-8, they have the most cap space going into the offseason. I think you can look at it and be really optimistic going into 2025 that they can, take that step into being a true contender. I think, I don't know if the players would sign on for it, but I think, pretty much anyone else would sign on for 9-8. And to your question of whether it's realistic, I think it is realistic if a lot of things go right with, the defenses we were talking about and with Kyler Murray.
Awesome stuff, Theo. Really appreciate it, man. Enjoy camp in the preseason.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
You betcha. There's Theo Mackey joining us from Arizona as we continue our NFL preview. So a little bit of numbers. If I look at Arizona, obviously, if you're a fantasy player, James Conner, Marvin Harrison Jr. Would be the two. Now, Greg Dortch, that's a name maybe if you're looking for a little bit of a depth receiver later on. Kyler Murray, he can't be he's not a top 12 quarterback. There's no chance, right? Where would you put Kyler Murray?
Hey, it's league to league, right? If
in a PPR, I don't know. If you're in a PPR, not a standard scoring. If you're just in a PPR league, where would you how would you have him, rated?
If he's healthy, I don't know. I'd probably have him mid 15-ish. I think there's other guys you're going to want to go for, but I would have no problem with storing Kyler Murray on my bench. If he's going to go back to the numbers that we saw him have, it's so long ago, 4 years ago, where, he's throwing for 25 plus touchdowns, but it can still run the ball. He rushed the ball for 800 yards back then. He's got to stay healthy. Yeah, and 11
Really?
touchdowns. Yeah, like he had some really big games. He had some moments. We knock him. We kind of make jokes because of his size, but he's capable of playing really good football. I really like Marvin Harrison. We talked about the running game. Trey Benson, I think, is going to be a very good player to spell James Conner. And if James Conner can stay healthy, I think they'll have a very good backup. But Trey McBride's a good player. You mentioned Michael Wilson. He really took some steps to the point where they were able to trade Rondale Moore away this past offseason. Rondale Moore got hurt. Hope he's doing okay. But yeah, I think I would be comfortable, if you're in a 10 to 12 team league, take Kyler Murray later on in the draft, store him there just in case, because if he finds some chemistry with Marvin Harrison, I think he could be an okay fantasy player.
All right. 5:41. Quick break. We'll return. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on Sports 1440, Oilers Nation, YouTube, and Facebook. And we'll get your thoughts. We'll wrap things up. Hey, I love the readers. Everybody's bringing back their high school book stories. Fantastic. I'm still waiting on anyone we've had a few texts in from parents, but I don't really, do you even know what your kids read in high school? I don't think you did based on your text. So let's find out what is the mandatory options for high school books right now. I'm just curious. 833-401-1440 in our inbox. Your partner in power since 1976, supplying the City of Champions and all of Alberta great electrical gear. EWEL.ca.
You turn on the tap and water comes out. You press the handle and flush the toilet. Living in our modern world, we sometimes take for granted or don't even think about all of the services and conveniences that are around us every day. But GS Construction does. Right under your feet, there's a whole network of underground infrastructure that needs to be built and maintained in order to have these basic services. GS Construction has been laying the groundwork for your community for 50 years. Find out more by going to gsconstruction.ca.
The summer road lays ahead. Your potential destinations are endless. Volvo Cars Edmonton gives you choice to match. Right now, lease a 2024 Volvo XC90 from 0% for qualifying loyal customers. Or save $7,000 on all new 2024 XC60 recharge plug-in hybrid models. All demo vehicles come with a free 10-year, 1 million kilometer warranty. No matter what you decide this summer will become, your first choice is Volvo Cars Edmonton. VolvoCarsEdmonton.com, 1205 101 Street Southwest.
Hey, Leduc, can leading edge physiotherapy help you? Well, this is a question I face every day. Let me answer the best I can. Do you have a pain or injury to your toe, foot, ankle, knee, hip, lower back, middle back, neck, shoulder, elbow, wrist, hand, or finger? Are you dealing with a sprain, strain, fracture, tendonitis, bursitis, arthritis, dizziness, balance issues, surgery, whiplash, or headache? Okay, I can't list all the problems that we can help in leading edge physio in under 30 seconds, and I can't promise we fix everyone. But I can promise that we'll combine our experience, skills, technology, and hands-on care to give you an edge. Life shouldn't hurt. Find us at leadingedgephysio.com.
Ready for a silly hockey fans. Your partner in power just skated onto the ice.
EWEL.ca, the new e-commerce website for electrical wholesalers Edmonton, is ready for the power play 24/7, 365.
UL skates to where the puck will be in 5 years. Now that's forward thinking.
Killer selection, slamming products from the best brands, and legendary service.
Don't sit on the bench. Get your account today at EWEL.ca and win that project.
Plug into your partner in power. Get an EWEL.ca account today.
You wanted local sports on weekends. Saturday mornings at 9, check out the Saturday Sports Setup, where we'll tee up what's happening on the weekend sports scene. Tune in Saturday morning at 9 on Sports 1440.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
Legacy Heating and Cooling is your supplier of maximum comfort, bringing you the cool AC you need. You just have to
call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort at night when the hot air suffocates you.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
For comfort in your wallet with no payments or interest for 1 year.
Call Legacy. Call Legacy.
You deserve comfort. Cool off today with AC from Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Experience more at the Edmonton Expo Center. Come for Canada's largest trade show, the biggest names in entertainment, exhilarating sporting events, and more. Stay for the experience. But it doesn't end there. Maximize your brand exposure with Edmonton Expo Center's new cutting-edge feature screens, spanning Western Canada's largest venue space. Captivate an annual audience of over 1 million visitors during iconic events like Pro Rodeo, Disney on Ice, Glow, K-Days, and so much more. To learn more, call 780-660-0514 or visit edmontonexpocenter.com today.
Blue Jays off to a good start. I won't even give you the score. Go home, watch it. You'll enjoy it, especially if you're a Vlad fan. He's up to a 20 game hitting streak. Good for him. A little ways to go. The Jays record is 28. His dad, by the way, had a 31 game hit streak 25 years ago in 1999, which would be tied for 26th longest. Little ways to go. Only 5 players have ever had a hit streak of 40 games or more. Sorry, 6 of 40 games or more. Of course, Joe DiMaggio has a record of 56, and then second place is 45. So it's a significant difference. It'd be great to see, like, just something to root for. See if it just goes the rest of the month. Get up to 30 plus. It'd be fun times. Hey, would you like to go? We've talked about the. Hey guys, JC asks who's eligible to play in the Hlinka Gretzky Cup. Well, it's basically draft eligible players as long as you're not a late birthday. You could be a late birthday like McKenna if you're under the age of 17, but you can't be a later birthday who's already 18, right? Somebody who had turned wasn't draft eligible last year because they were born after September 15th. They're not eligible. So there you go. Got to be 17 and under draft eligible players right now. And if you're a fan of the draft, then I think you would enjoy this tournament because a lot of the players who are playing are going to get drafted this year. Now, there's some like McKenna and others. There's a few who are 16 years of age or late birthday who will turn 17 in after September 15th. Well, they are not eligible to be drafted this year. And speaking of the Hlinka Gretzky, Cons, where are those seats for the game tomorrow? It's Canada's game, correct?
Canada, yeah. Sweden, 3:30 down at Rogers Place. We've got 2 tickets in row 21, seat 11 and 12 in section 103.
Ooh, pretty good seats. So would you like to go to the game? Now, remember, it's Friday at 3:30. So can you go 100%? If so, text in 833-401-1440, 833-401-1440, and just put your name in. Con's going to do a random pick, and you can go to the game. So it's that easy. Tomorrow afternoon, 3:30. So a little bit of hooky, a little bit, not much, but a little bit for you to get out and rock and roll. So there you have it. A few other texts to get to, 833-401-1440. Hey, boys, listening to all the talk about Draisaitl, how come there's no talk about Broberg and Holloway? Are those contracts at an impasse? From Daniel. No, Daniel. There's not much to negotiate there, to be honest, which is why I think it would get done before the end of this month. Just when you look at it from a player perspective, Dylan Holloway and Broberg, even though, you're confident, you think you're going to get signed, you want to get signed. You want to have it off your plate and not have to worry about it and not have to wait until the final day. Now, maybe there's a conversation because here's the difference. You can look at all the numbers. And the Oilers, like, it's not so much a Ryan McLeod situation of a few years ago. And what did he get? $794,000, I think it was, because that's literally all they had left to get him under. The Oilers are likely either Kane's here, then they're going to have to trade somebody who's not Broberg or Holloway because they don't make enough money, or Kane starts the season on LTIR, then they're in LTIR, and it doesn't matter what Broberg and Holloway's deal is. I'm talking to the point where they have to negotiate $50,000 or less. I think I look at those two. They have no arbitration rights. They do not have big numbers. They played 81 and 89 games respectively, right? Broberg played a lot of those games where he's playing 10 minutes. Same with Holloway, in fact. So, they're two young guys that's just the business. This is a business year where you don't take it personal. You have your mom or your dad, your agent say, hey, let's just look at the big picture. This is why. It's a salary cap league. You don't have arbitration rights. Go out and have a good season. You'll get your contract that's a little bit better next year. It's that simple. So I definitely don't expect it to be any sort of impasse at this point. It's just they didn't have a GM. And right now, I think the GM's main priority, probably, not that you can't have multiple conversations. I'm sure he's had other conversations. It's not just like I can only talk to Draisaitl's agent, Mike Liut. You can talk to other ones. But I think if we're talking about priority, Draisaitl, then Broberg and Holloway. Even though Draisaitl's contract doesn't kick in until next season, I do think you have to look at it realistically as to as far as what is the best bet in that regard. On behalf of the con man, Donovan Paulson, thanks everybody for watching and listening. If you missed any part, if you're a draft junkie, you want to tune into the Steve Ellis interview, it's up at jasongregor.com, single interviews, or you can get all the pods anywhere you get your podcast, The Jason Gregor Show. Or you can go rewatch it on YouTube at Oilers Nation. It's always up there as well. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Enjoy tomorrow. Canada got a few more medal hopefuls to go for, so that should be loads of fun. Check it out early in the morning. Let's get to the comment on a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Action Electrical. Residential, solar, or commercial solar, well, they have it all. Solar and other green energy products have a business income tax incentive. Learn more at actionelectrical.net. Good night.
This is a Sports 1440 update.
Montreal has won another medal for Canada at the Olympics in weightlifting, silver in the 59-kilogram category. Meanwhile, Canada's Skylar Park also won bronze in women's taekwondo. And in beach volleyball, Brandy Wilkerson and Melissa Humano Parody are advancing to the gold medal match as they'll take on Brazil after defeating Switzerland in 3 sets earlier today. Gold medal match goes tomorrow at 2:30 on the hardcore. The United States rallied to beat Serbia 95-91. They'll now take on France, who defeated Germany earlier today, Saturday 1:30 in the gold medal matchup. In the MLB, Vlad Guerrero extending his hit streak to 20 games. Jays right now lead the Orioles 3-2 in the top of the third. Runner at second, 2 outs. Elsewhere, Rays trail the Cards 3-2 in the second. The Angels have a 2-1 lead over the Yankees. Marlins and Reds tied at 3 apiece heading into the sixth. Later tonight, the Tigers taking on the Mariners, and the Diamondbacks host the Phillies. Earlier on today, the Nationals fell in extras to the Giants 9-5. It was the Brewers over the Braves 16-7. Padres dropped the Pirates 7-6, and Mets over the Rockies 9-1. CFL Week 10 action is officially underway out in Ottawa. Red Blacks and Riders scoreless with 7.5 minutes left in the first quarter. And NFL preseason right now, the Lions lead the Giants 3-0. And the Patriots and Panthers are scoreless midway through the second. That's going to do it for us here on the Jason Gregor Show. Coming up next year on Sports 1440, it's another edition of Turn Sports, followed by Fox Sports Radio at 9 o'clock tonight. Carious Show returns tomorrow with guest host Brandon Douglas and Donovan Paulson. I'm Connor Halley. This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Sports 1440.